Hokage I can fully level up with one click. Chapter 561 to 580. Chapter 561 _ I give you 7 days of heavy rain. Miss. All Sunday, is there really an unknown enemy here in your mouth? The deep voice echoed in the noise of the crowd. A body shaped like an iron tower, with prominent muscles all over his body, obviously incompatible with refugees, was hidden in a sand-proof cloak. The outfit of an ascetic monk adds to the feeling of inexplicable perseverance. As for standing behind him, it was Nico Robin, who was the vice president of Rock Works, whose identity was revealed by Chin Yu's words. Faced with Mr. Point 1 Feet's inquiry, Nicole Robin looked solemn and said, "Mr. 1, I received information from Arnabane 3 days ago. He mentioned that Cobra, the king of Alabasta, will arrive in Juba today for the first meeting with the secret man brought by Princess Vivi." Having said that, Nico Robin glanced at the phone bug in his hand and said, "If someone can really see through our plan at a glance, then I believe that the most likely person is the person Cobra met today. Also, even if we can't find that person, we can take this opportunity to take off Cobra's head." Mr. Point 1 fell into silence, and immediately nodded in agreement. For K. Rockville, he has absolute loyalty. In the original book, after being defeated by Sauron, he also fell into the hands of the Navy headquarters and was escorted to the city prison. However, in the face of the rescue of Mr. and others, K. Rockville, who was willing and in a bad mood, stayed in the boat and refused to be rescued. Can be considered a chivalrous person. Right now, Mr. 1 is skeptical about Nico Robin's worries, but as long as it helps Crocodile, it's enough. It is precisely for this reason that he will agree to Nico Robin's private request to do this unpaid task together. "Mosamoxi, I am an elder of hundreds of millions. The vice president, please run away immediately, as far as you can, don't stop, or you will die." The voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. While the phone bug was turned down to a minimum, it was masked by other noisy sounds. For Nico Robin and Mr. 1, though, that's out of the way. However, this sound transmission undoubtedly exceeded their expectations. As the strongest two of Chiwahai's subordinates, they came to this place in person to investigate the incident. However, the eyeliner who stayed in the king's army now only gave such an answer, which made them feel caught off guard. PFF'd. A low sonic boom sounded suddenly. A huge black shadow, with an inexplicably depressed posture, shrouded the sky and covered the sky. The violent scene shook everyone's nerves, and it was too late to think about it. He hurriedly looked up at the sky, and the first thing that caught his eye was 6 huge bone dragons covered with people. In the face of those extremely crazy enthusiasm, Chin Yu finally summoned 2 more to spend his vigorous energy on them. However, the 6 bone dragons are also not enough for tens of thousands of people. In the end, if it wasn't for Chin Yu's cold snort, he stopped the storm a little. I'm afraid Long Yi was torn apart by them. Looking at the scene in front of them, the expressions of Nico Robin and Mr. 1, who were still suspicious, changed slightly. They looked at each other and saw the shock on each other's faces. The vice president of the Rock Works, the other is the most famous bounty hunter in the West Sea. They knew exactly what the bone dragons in front of them represented. After all, the escape incident in Chinda prison and the public execution of Tianlong people in the Chambord Islands not long ago shocked the whole sea. Moreover, not long ago, they also received the latest bounty amount for the world government to the skeleton demon. That's $1 billion. At this moment, they finally understood why the eyeliner just said such words to let them escape as soon as possible. It never occurred to me that the great God who made the Navy headquarters devastated would come to this place. However, there is one more thing Nico Robin can't figure out. If that Prince Mr. is this skeleton monster, how does he know his identity? Boom! 6 huge bone dragons suddenly fell on the desert, and the huge impact force even brought a wind and sand back. The violent scene caused the refugees gathered here to suddenly fall into chaos. However, after seeing the person standing above, the figure of Kosha, the leader of the rebel army, suddenly calmed down. More of a face full of disbelief, Yuan stared at the scene in front of him with his eyes wide open. Everyone, calm down. This time, thanks to the assistance of Your Excellency Ains, we have reached a temporary armistice agreement with the king's army. Kosha was the first to speak. His first priority now is to stabilize the current situation. At the same time, he was eager to know what the great gift Qin Yu said just now was. Thinking of this, Kosha jumped off the bone dragon and said, "So, no matter what happens next, everyone must not be chaotic, and at the same time, they must not be rude. Because, Your Excellency Ains, in order to sign a strategic agreement with us in Alabasta, he will give us a gift." The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the desert. It can be said that when he said these words, Kosha did not know where his confidence was. In front of tens of thousands of people, he said that Qin Yu was going to give a good gift. In case it's just a small gift, maybe some so-called gold-silver jewelry. For them who are now lacking a source of water and living in dire straits, it is not of much use at all. "Kosha, is that Ains-sama you're talking about?" An old man suddenly pointed to Qin Yu, who was standing on the head of the bone dragon. In front of everyone's eyes, he slumped to his knees on the ground and hurriedly asked for help. "Lord Ains, I see that you are very handsome. We don't want gold-silver jewelry or any reward. I just want to have a bite to eat. My granddaughter, I haven't eaten for 2 days. We old people can't eat, but the children can't bear it anymore. Lord Ains, please save my granddaughter. It was our turn to fetch water today, but we haven't had any water for a whole day. Ains-sama, have you brought fresh water? We can do anything for you to pay for it. The old ones can survive, but the young ones can't." Urgent calls for help came out one after another. Looking at the kneeling old people, the skin has already been cracked, and the lips are dry and peeling. It can be said that if it were not for their will, they would have died of thirst. "Your Excellency Ains, do you really have a solution? I beg you to save them too." Vivi's eyes suddenly became Yuhi, and she had never expected to meet again, and things had evolved to this point. Looking at Wei Wei who was about to kneel, Qin Yu slammed the scepter on the ground, and the magic power surged, directly supporting Wei Wei's body, and the indifferent voice sounded immediately. "I, Ains Ulgaun, as the supreme being of the great tomb of Narisik, what I said is of course true. Now I'll give you 7 days of downpour. Chapter 562 A bigger gift will be promised. Give 7 days of downpour." The people present couldn't help but froze in place. Even Vivi, Cobra and others are no exception. After all, as they expected, Dingtian is also some food, fresh water, or gold and other things. However, as soon as Qin Yu opened his mouth, he said that he would give them a downpour. Still 7 days away. However, before they could react, Qin Yu held the scepter and took the next step in full view. The scepter clenched in his hand suddenly stomped towards the void. When the violent magic power was suddenly detonated, turned into a light Jinchuriki column that shot straight to the sky above the 9 heavens, and the clouds accumulated in the void were pierced with a bang. One by one, colorful magic circles bloomed quickly, like dazzling fireworks. The originally hot air became cooler in the next moment. Immediately afterwards, under the raging wind, the wind and sand rolled. The boundless black ink-like lead clouds rolled back in all directions with a rolling gesture. It gives people a feeling that the mountains and rains are about to come and the wind is full of buildings. Boom! The low sound of thunder echoed like a bell, and the ferocious electric snake cut through the sky. A moment ago, the sky with the scorching sun was covered by dark clouds in the blink of an eye. Before they could react, the sound of dripping rain suddenly sounded. Yes, it is rain. Ains-sama, send us a downpour. Gosh, what the hell did I see? It's a miracle. No, we finally have water to drink. Hurry up and move all the things that can hold water. This is a gift from Ains-sama to us. The voiceless exclamation sounded suddenly. Soon, it became a piece, like a symphony. Facing the scene of the long drought and the nectar in front of them, many people present couldn't hold back, and opened their hands to welcome the heavy rain that fell from the sky. His dry, cracked mouth bluffed, drinking the falling rain greedily. Along with the rebel army standing on the bone dragon, the king's army, and even the king of Kosha and Alabasta, Cobra is no exception. They never thought of the most fundamental cause of external and internal troubles that had plagued them for 7 or 8 years. He couldn't even shove the scepter in Chin Yu's hand. A long-awaited torrential rain started immediately. Moreover, according to Chin Yu, this lasted for 7 days, and it was completely impossible to even use dancing powder. This ride is a miracle. Thinking of this, Cobra and Kosha couldn't help but glance at Chin Yu. If they had been impulsive and rejected Chin Yu's trading proposal directly, I'm afraid they wouldn't know what would happen now. The big pirate with a reward of 1 billion is really extraordinary. Lord Ains, I thank you for the people of Alabasta. The white exotic dress on Vivi's body was already soaked by the rain. That tulle-like coat could hardly hide her inner beauty. It can be said that the feeling is completely like a Yuhi apricot coming out of the wall, and the feeling of spring can't be closed. However, this strange emotion, which just emerged in Chin Yu's mind, was quickly eliminated by the Bone King's talent, and the negative emotions were directly eliminated. He glanced down at Wei Wei a little, stretched out the big white skeleton hand, picked up a strand of hair on her forehead, and said, "This is just the beginning. If you know the next thing, I will give you a gift. Maybe it will be in the form of we promise each other." Quote. Promise yourself. The people present were stunned for a moment. Along with Cobra is no exception. Alabasta is in trouble at the moment, but Wei Wei is also an Iron Princess. What's more, 800 years ago, their family was still from the Tianlong people. If it wasn't too self-willed and unwilling to move in, I'm afraid I wouldn't be bullied by a Chihuahua now. Now Chin Yu said as soon as he opened his mouth that the gifts he will give in the future will make the dignified Princess Wei Wei feel the urge to promise her. This made them even more curious as to what it was. After all, after experiencing the scene of the downpour that was bestowed on him for 7 days just now, they were even more curious as to what it was. However, facing the urgent gazes from the people around him, Chin Yu suddenly raised his head, and the flame of the soul jumping in his eyes suddenly burst into flames, saying, "There are guests coming, I will come back when I go, and you should all go away." Abandoning these words, Chin Yu stepped forward, and the space fluctuations emerged. The whole person passed through the portal, and disappeared into place out of thin air. The violent scene made the pupils of those present suddenly shrink. I originally planned to see what could make Wei Wei promise each other, but now Chin Yu disappeared out of thin air, which undoubtedly ruined their thoughts. Okay, originally, I also wanted to see, there is something worth my baby's promise, it seems that I have to wait for the next time. Cobra regained his senses, shook his head a little lost and said, "Father, are you planning to sell me?" Wei Wei said, her cheeks slightly under Yuhi, her cheeks puffed out and her eyes widened. Feeling the murderous gaze, Cobra quickly smiled wryly and waved his hand to explain. No, Father King doesn't mean that. I'm just a little curious. There is something that can be compared to the current heavy rain, to Alabasta. More important. Quote. The people present were startled for a while. Facing Cobra's remarks, he undoubtedly fell into deep thought. After hesitating for a while, Wei Wei looked around the land as far as she could see, and she saw a piece of yellow sand, and said with a melancholy face, "Apart from the rain, what we have lost the most in Alabasta is the fertile land. Ba is no more. It would be great if the gift mentioned by Lord Ains could be the old Juba. The voice of regret echoed under the rainstorm. The people present fell into silence. In the face of Weiwei's extravagant hopes, it can be said that this idea also appeared in their minds just now. It's just that, in their eyes, the next 7-day torrential rain is already amazing. Not to mention, making a desert glow with a new spring is simply nonsense. On the other hand, it is tens of thousands of meters away from the water eye where the crowd gathers. 2 figures in cloaks rode camels and rushed in the direction of Yuyan. Feel the torrential rain that hits me mercilessly in the sky. And the shocking scene just now, for the 2 of them, it was a nightmare. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe it? They worked at the Rockwork Society and spent a lot of effort to take away the rain from Yuba. However, now it is being poured down by the great skeleton demon, and the downpour has broken down their hard work. It can be said that if this matter is known to Kay Rockdoll, who has always been self-sufficient, absolutely won't believe it. Chapter 563 _ Test the Enemy. Mr. 1, haven't you contacted the president yet? Wait a minute, no matter what happens, we must not mess up. Nicole Robin couldn't help but glanced back, busy calling Rockdale. Bugs Mr. 1. However, as soon as the eyes fell, I heard Mr. 1 and shouted in a hurry. Watch out all Sunday, he's here. Coming. Nico Robin's expression changed dramatically, and her nerves suddenly tightened. Without thinking too much, I hurriedly looked ahead. The first thing that caught my eye was the torn space Uzumaki, and the huge skeleton figure walking out slowly. My guest, I left without saying hello. Chinyu just stepped on the yellow sand, suddenly raised his head, the soul flame in the depths of his eyes suddenly soared, and he looked at the fast galloping figure. As the supreme being of the great tomb of Narasak, your actions will confuse me. Could it be that under the absolute strength gap, you still don't give up? The deep voice, between the lines, is full of icy taste. The violent scene caused Nico Robin and Mr. 1 to shout in unison as their expressions changed slightly. Go! Bang bang bang! The simple words were uttered, and the 2 camels rushed towards Chinyu like crazy. Robin Mr. 1 sitting on the back of a camel has no intention of stopping at all. The short distance of more than 10 meters is only approaching in the blink of an eye. Oh, it seems that some people really won't cry if they don't see the coffin. Chinyu said lightly. The scepter in his hand stomped gently towards the ground. The sigh of death. Boom. The dark aura of death, like a frenzy, quickly rewinded with Chinyu as the center. The 2 camels that came rushing towards them hadn't reacted yet, and instantly hit the black aura. However, wherever the black energy passed, the huge camel instantly turned into a bone. Mr. 1, who were sitting on the back of a camel, suddenly contracted their pupils. The next moment, he was directly entangled by black air. Boom. 2 low-pitched gas explosions sounded suddenly. Nico Robin and Mr. 1, at this moment, burst like balloons. It turned into petals scattered in the sky and scattered in the sky. A fruit clone, as expected of Nico Robin, the think tank of Rock Works. Chinyu smiled genially. After the dark aura of death rolled away, the yellow sand beneath his feet made a rustling sound. The next moment, the screams burst out. Wanzikion Yuhi strangulation. Bang bang bang. A hand protruded out of the yellow sand without warning. Like dense vines, it quickly spread towards Chinyu's body. The speed was so fast that in just half a breath, Chinyu was wrapped like a zongzi. The next moment, a huge body rushed out of the yellow sand. When the cold light circulated all over the body, giving a feeling of indestructibility, the moment when the blade was swallowed in the hand. Without any bells and whistles, he slashed head-on towards Chinyu, who was bound into a zongzi. Destroyed. The deep voice came out, and with his hands entangled, he slammed into Chin Yu's body. Boom! A series of vertical and horizontal slashes splattered like a frenzy. Like the sharp claws of invisible beasts, even the desert land with a radius of tens of meters was torn apart with ferocious slashing marks. The arm that wrapped around Chin Yu's body and condensed with wawa fruit was also shattered in an instant. Turned into petals all over the sky, collapsing between heaven and earth. In the face of this precise attack, the Bar Rock Work Club, the vice president and the top bounty hunters in the West Sea joined forces. It can be said that an ordinary person would have already been killed by a single blow and turned into pieces of meat all over the ground. However, under the fluttering petals, a huge skeleton flickering as black as steel appeared first in front of Mr. One and Nico Robin. Huo Ran turned around, and under the eyes of the soul flames, the cold voice was even more soul-stirring. Is this your ultimate move? It's disappointing as always. Chin Yu looked back at Mr. One who was close at hand and said, the weak should be baptized by the strong. Come on, accept the embrace of the strong. Super magic, the fall of the sky. When the scepter fell, and the magic circle bloomed like fireworks. Dormant in Chin Yu's body, the violent magic frantically emerged. The next moment, a dangerous breath swooped down in the sky. Mr. One, run away. Nico Robin, who was dozens of meters away, raised her voice in a hurry. However, as soon as the voice fell, there was a tearing roar and explosion in the sky. Boom! The fiery light Jinchuriki column instantly enveloped a radius of thousands of meters with the gesture of tearing space. Under the violent power, Mr. 1-Foot's expression changed drastically, and he was able to escape more than 10 meters away, and he had completely given up escaping. A deep, violent drink came out of his mouth, and his muscles swelled like a rock. At the same time, the Devil Fruit ability is also activated to ultimate. The next moment, the fiery light Jinchuriki column crashed down. Boom! The thunder-like explosion sounded and dissipated. Under the scorching air waves, the surrounding yellow sand land was directly penetrated. The sandstorm swept away like a storm. It took more than half a minute for the scorching heat to dissipate. Thousands of meters of desert land, only a large pit of more than 10 meters is left. Nico Robin's figure was lying in the desert on a slanted side, and the hands that were used for defense around him, with the help of the fruit's ability, were quickly dissipating. Mr. Point One, which was more than 10 meters away from Chin Yu, it was tattered all over, standing on the spot in the heat. Looking at this scene, Nicole Robin, who was struggling to stand up, showed a hint of joy on her face. Mr. One, you'll be fine. Let's not fight. We should retreat first when we have a chance. He is not something we can deal with. Facing Chin Yu's extremely bizarre attack method, Nicole Robin's confidence was obviously completely defeated. Escape. There was a trace of Yuhi's blood on the corner of Mr. Point One Feet's mouth. He raised his head to meet Chin Yu's gaze, and said, he didn't use all his strength, we can't escape. I want to know, how much power did you use for that blow just now, 7/10 or 5/10? In the eyes of Mr. One, since there is no way to escape horizontally or vertically, the only thing he can do is to try Chin Yu's depth for the sake of Rockdoll. Is also good to give Rockdoll a combat environment as close as possible to the acquaintance and the enemy, so as to increase the probability of victory. Haha, as expected of K. Rockdoll's most loyal companion, he actually came up with a way to test the enemy by himself. Chin Yu laughed dryly and said, since you are so devoted to friendship, then I will tell you. It was only 5% of my power just now, I just didn't want to kill you. Chapter 564 You have already killed me. 5% power. As soon as these words fell, let alone Mr. One, even Nico Robin's complexion changed drastically. She knew very well that in the Ba Rock Work Club, she had higher authority than Mr. One. But in terms of combat power, MR1 is second only to K-Roctal. MR1, who also made her feel a headache, was only forcing out 5% of her power in front of the skeleton demon. If there is no lie in these words, then the skeleton demon in front of him will fight with all his strength. What will the strength reach? 5%. Mr. One muttered to himself, suddenly looked up at Chin Yu, and said, "It seems that my eyesight has deteriorated." For a pirate bounty hunter, the ability to judge the strength gap is the most important thing. However, in the face of this unfathomable existence, such a big misjudgment was made. What a shame for a bounty hunter. MR1. No, you should be called Das Bonies, Chin Yu said lightly. As the strongest bounty hunter in the West Sea, you, like K-Roctal, committed the deadliest point. Hiding in this weak sea will only rust your body functions. Even in the New World, the prevailing armament Hokage, you don't understand. It can be said that you are out of touch. The slightly elusive voice made Daz's expression moved. Facing Chin Yu's remarks, he was completely unable to refute. After all, the misjudgment of strength just now has already explained all this. However, looking at your chivalry, I'll give you a chance. Chin Yu looked up at Daz lightly, and under the surging magic power on his body, the appearance of the Bone King disappeared. Restored Laxus stance. His right hand suddenly caught in the void, and an ancient samurai sword fell into his hand. Are you planning to use kendo to compete with me? Daz's expression changed slightly. Even Nico Robin is no exception. In their eyes, Chin Yu's most powerful aspect is the Demon Skull Demon Fruit's ability. There are also endless attack methods. However, now Chin Yu not only gave up the fruit ability posture, but instead used the kendo that Daz was good at. This is undoubtedly beyond Nico Robin's cognition. What's the matter, do you want to take a gamble? Chin Yu entered Laxus's character instantly, and said coldly and arrogantly, "If you beat me in swordsmanship, I will let you leave. However, if you lose, you're going to give up K-Roctal and become my subordinate." To be your subordinate? Daz's expression changed slightly, even Nico Robin was no exception. But this request for negotiation in front of her clearly gave Nico Robin hope. Are you letting me go on purpose? Daz looked at Chin Yu and said solemnly, "My kendo, unlike others, has been completely integrated with the fruit ability. If you just rely on kendo to fight against me, you are sure to lose. Because I have Kuai-Janran who has Kuai-Sho fruit, your knife will not be faster than mine." As a superhuman devil fruit ability, Sauron faced him in the original book, but suffered a lot. On the verge of death, if it weren't for the explosion of the small universe, I'm afraid it would have turned into bones. Facing the confident Daz, Chin Yu pursed his arrogant cheeks slightly and said with a smile, "The world of swordsmanship is only fast and unbreakable. I'm sorry, but I also happen to know the way of the fast sword." Yeah. Daz looked startled, watching the moment when Chin Yu clenched the scabbard with his left hand and the hilt of the hilt with the 5 fingers of his right hand. The breath of the whole person has undergone earth-shaking changes. When Huo Ran raised his head, his eyes were as sharp as a falcon. If it is said that Chin Yu the moment before, gave him the feeling that he was a layman in kendo, so now, he feels to Daz like a sharp-edged blade. Sharp and compelling. At this moment, Daz finally understood that Chin Yu's request for a duel by swordsmanship was not just a matter of words. I take back the contempt I just made, as a fellow person, but I will still defeat you, swear by my quick cut. Daz said in a deep voice. The voice fell, but it has not completely dissipated. The power of the fruit dormant in the body was pushed to ultimate by Daz, and his feet quickly turned into sharp blades like ice skating shoes. The moment his hands and fingers turned into blades, without any hesitation, his feet slammed toward the ground. The whole person turned into a sharp arrow, violently plundering towards Chin Yu. Looking at the rapidly enlarged figure in his pupils, a flash of determination flashed across Daz's face. Take my strongest move. Dust-slicing speed knife. The awe-inspiring words came out, and the moment their eyes met, Daz had already appeared in front of Chinyu. In his eyes, this distance is enough to kill anyone. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, Chinyu suddenly raised his head and met Daz's eyes. The next moment, before he could react, the sound of thunder ripped apart like a frenzy. Breath of thunder, flash of thunder, 10 burials. Boom. 10 ghostly figures scattered instantly with Chinyu in front of him, occupying all the vision in front of him. The posture that seemed to be substantial, suddenly reunited in the void. In the end, the knife in Daz's hand had not yet selected the enemy, and a thunderous light swept past like a fright. In the end, Chinyu's figure appeared after a dozen meters behind Daz. The arc that circulated on his body still had a crackling sound. Looking at this weird scene, Nico Robin was stunned. In her eyes, 10 identical Chinyus appeared in the sky just now, and then the light flashed, and Chinyu and Daz exchanged positions. Even the exact fight is not right. Daz, why are you standing in the same place? I didn't mean to compete in kendo just now. This is our last hope. Don't drop the chain, Nico Robin couldn't help reminding. Looking at Daz, who was standing in the same place like a sculpture, he slowly turned around. The first scene that caught her eye made her pupils shrink suddenly. PFF'd. A bloody arrow spewed out without warning. The ferocious blood mouth, from under Daz's left abdomen, went straight to the top of his right shoulder, directly across the entire body. Senbai's bones, in the flesh, are even more shocking. Seeing the dramatic change in Nico Robin's expression, Daz was stunned at first, then looked down at him. The abnormal shape in his chest was stunned, and then the tense muscles all over his body relaxed instantly. After taking one more look at Chinyu, he lost his balance and slammed into the desert. On the huge battlefield, only the last words with a little self-deprecating reverberation were left, echoing between heaven and earth. It turns out that you have already beheaded me. Chapter 565 _ Self-Directed Hero Scenes. Mr. 1 lost. Nico Robin looked in disbelief. Mr. 1 is in the Ba Rock Work Club, but has the strength second only to Shichibu Heike Rock Doll. It is also the trump card in Nico Robin's eyes. Every time he encounters a task that cannot be solved, as long as Mr. 1 takes a shot, he will definitely be able to win. However, in the face of the slash at the glimpse just now, the result completely subverted her cognition. As a person with the superhuman type and the ability to cut fruit quickly, he didn't even know that he was beheaded. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe it? The messy thoughts flashed in Nico Robin's mind, and when she came back to her senses, she had already met Chinyu's sight. His expression suddenly stagnated, and he bit Kiba and said, "You can kill me, but I will never let you send me to the world government. Not even if I die." While talking, Nico Robin backhanded a dagger that had been hidden for many years and stabbed it directly into the throat. This is what she hid on her body, always reminding herself that if she can't escape one day, in order to avoid falling into the hands of the world government, she will use it to solve herself. When the crisp metal collision sound suddenly echoed, Nico Robin just felt a numbness in her hand, and the dagger flew out directly. In the blink of an eye, he saw Chinyu appearing in front of him like a ghost. The height of nearly 2 meters met her gaze in a bird's-eye view. Immediately, with a thud in her mind, a large warm hand directly covered her head. "Come on, I need someone to help me manage." Abandoning these words, Chinyu recklessly rubbed Nico Robin's hair, then turned around and walked towards Daz with a face full of astonishment. Aren't you going to give me to the world government? I am the son of evil, and I am the best bargaining chip between you and the world government." Nico Robin couldn't help but asked. As the only person in this sea who can read the blank 100-year history, Nico Robin's value is immeasurable. Otherwise, there will be no reward of 80 million at the age of 8. If you want, I don't mind. With the magic power of Qin Yu's right hand emerging, he summoned a skeleton knight and directly carried Daz on his shoulders. After throwing a healing magic at random, he looked back at Nico Robin and said, "If you don't want to, don't worry, I'm much better than K. Rockdale. If you want to figure it out, just follow along." The magic power emerged from Qin Yu's body, and he regained the posture of the Bone King again. He stomped the scepter in his hand, and the huge bone dragon turned out. Seeing the scene like a conjuration, Nico Robin's face changed slightly, she bit Yuhi's lips tightly, and quickly followed. At the same time, outside the rain banquet, dozens of pirates rushed in quickly, and laughed horribly when they saw the merchants and civilians rushing to the city along the way. "I didn't expect that Chiwahai would secretly ask us to rob these merchants. Isn't he the hero of this city?" The burly man who took the lead laughed playfully. The skinny man behind him smiled playfully and said, "What does this have to do with us? We can blame him, the people here really regard him as a hero. We just need to grab the money, if we don't have any money, and then use this information to blackmail him. Then Chiwahai will be a steady stream of treasuries, and we won't have to be chased by the navy all day. The two leaders are right, let's hurry up and grab it." As soon as these words fell, the pirates in the field echoed. For them, these businessmen and civilians in front of them have long since become fish on a sticky board. If it's not for fun, and according to K. Rockdale's request, be sure to chase to the city gate and let others see it with their own eyes. Spread the story of saving him as a hero. Looking at the city gate that was getting closer and closer, when the pirates gradually became excited, Bastiu, who was hiding at the end of the team, suddenly changed his expression. Before I could think about it, my hands suddenly clasped together, and I quickly covered my entire body with armament hockey. As soon as all this was completed, the desert land in front of him sounded a low sonic boom without warning. The next moment, under the watchful eyes of the public, it turned into a slashing training, and went straight to a group of pirates. The speed is so fast that no ordinary pirate can react at all. Wherever the slash passed, the pirates along the way were torn into two halves like paper paste. There was even a scream of misery. Before it was too late to make it, it turned into a blood mist that filled the sky and collapsed between the sky and the earth. Watching this violent scene, Bastiu, who displayed observation hockey, his face sank, and the shark slashing knife in his hand slashed towards the desert and slashed out. Boom! A dull thunderous explosion resounded. Under the collision of the slightest reluctance, the sand and dust rolled back like a hurricane. The impact of the huge air wave caused a large area of yellow sand. After everything returned to calm, Bastius subconsciously looked at K. Rockdale standing above the city gate, his face gloomy. "Thank you, thank Lord Rockdale for helping us, you are the patron saint of our rain banquet. If it wasn't for Lord K. Rockdale's 3 or 4 shots, I'm afraid the huge Alabasta would no longer have a safe place, and even the rain banquet would be occupied by pirates and the rebel army." Stunned at first, and after seeing the crocodile on the city gate and the pirates who were torn to pieces, they hurriedly knelt on the ground and thanked them. "What a self-directed and self-acted heroic drama," Bastiu said gloomily. After he separated from Qin Yu, he planned to collect the evidence of Chiwahai Rockdale. "It never occurred to me that as soon as I found an abandoned fort, I was met by a group of pirates who were sectarians and 9 class. However, Bastiu didn't expect that all of this could be considered a crooked play to let him see this despicable scene. Lieutenant Admiral K. Rockdale also noticed that among the pirates who should have been killed by him in one move as usual, a different figure appeared. When he saw Bastiu's face clearly, his face suddenly became gloomy. This time his plans were very secretive. At the same time, Vice Admirals generals of this rank, generally only stay in the New World. Rarely haunt here. Now suddenly appearing here, still mixed in the pirates, let K-Roctal smell an unusual smell. The Navy actually colluded with the pirates. No wonder the Alabasta rebels and pirates are rampant. The Navy headquarters did not say at all. It was because of this reason. A businessman said abruptly. Facing this violent scene, Bastius couldn't help but startled. But before he could open his mouth to refute, the surrounding melon eaters fell to one side. Chapter 566 _ Don't take yourself too seriously. It turns out that the Navy turned out to be such a face. I knew early on that there were no good things in the Navy. If we hadn't been rescued by Lord Shichibu Heike Rokdar, I'm afraid we would have already died. Despicable Navy, we will definitely complain to you. A series of insults came out from the crowd. Bastiu's expression changed involuntarily. He originally planned to expose the true face of K-Roctal, who directed and acted as Hero R in public. I never thought that at this juncture, someone would directly take a step back. Seeing the scene in front of him, K-Rocdar breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Everyone, don't be impatient, there is such a person in the Navy headquarters, and as Chiwahai, I also have the right to supervise. I will wait a moment. Call the Navy headquarters and let them investigate this matter thoroughly. However, Bastiu, I still intend to advise you to leave Alabasta immediately. This is not a place you can set foot on." Having said that, K-Roctal looked at Bastius coldly. If it wasn't for the trouble, I don't know if there is a Navy eyeliner nearby. At the same time, he looked at Bastius' body, the pitch-black armament hockey. K-Roctal didn't have much confidence and could take him down in one face. After all, when he was invited to be Chiwahai, Bastius followed Zepha's side. For his face, as well as the strength of his strength, K-Roctal still knows a little bit. What a trick. Bastiu met K-Rocdar's gaze and said, "I didn't expect that you planned to invade Alabasta like the teacher guessed. However, don't think that this plan can be guaranteed. These people may be tempted by you, but soon the teacher will tear your mask, and then I will personally catch you and send you to Judicial Island for trial." Abandoning these words, Bastius didn't stay too long, and turned around and left. Under Chinyu's command, the first thing he learned was neither domineering nor any physical skills. Instead, it is to judge the gap between the strength of the enemy and us. In the original, Shichibu Heike Rokdal looks a bit watery. However, if it weren't for Luffy's pig's foot halo, he was killed by the plot pit. I am afraid that the people who die are the whole regiment of Straw Hats. Facing K-Roctal, who is Kibukai and possesses the ability of natural Shasha fruit, Bastiu knew clearly that he could not defeat him alone. What's more, the task Chinyu gave him was to collect evidence of Crocdar's occupation of Alabasta. The battle is still left to Chinyu. Seeing Bastiu who turned and left neatly, K-Roctal couldn't help but startled. In his memory, Bastius was an old stubborn type just like the former admiral, Black Wrist Zepha. I also like to talk about justice all day long. Never thought that he would pat his butt and leave after a round of mouth cannons. This result subverted K-Rocdale's cognition. However, when he thought that the old immortal Zepha who was supposed to retire might appear in Alabasta, K-Rocdar couldn't help frowning. After taking one more look at Bastius, who ran turned into yellow sand and disappeared in place. He now desperately wants to go back and find Nico Robin to find out if the master has arrived and other navies have set foot in Alabasta. Bang! The door of the huge conference room was directly smashed open by K-Roctal, and the documents that should have been placed on the table were also carried away by the wind and sand. Looking at the dead silent meeting room, without even a single figure, K-Rocdal's face suddenly turned gloomy. In his memory, Nicole Robin, as a tool for his manipulation of the Bar Rock works, rarely leaves here. If there is really something that cannot be solved, she will only ask Mr. One to solve it. Now that he has suddenly disappeared, K-Rockdoll quickly took out the phone bug, contacting Mr. One when he smelled something unusual. However, before K-Rockdoll called, a phone worm's prompt sounded abruptly. "Clo, Lord Kettle, run away." Familiar voices rang out in the phone bug intermittently. Echoing in this dead silent meeting room, there was no way to disperse for a long time. Faced with this violent scene, K-Rockdoll's expression couldn't help but stagnate, staring at the phone bug in disbelief. It can be said that, in his eyes, the huge Baroque work club, except for Nico Robin, a woman who can interpret the text of the world. The most important thing is Mr. One. As for the others, in K-Rockdoll's eyes, they just died when they died. Now all of a sudden, the person he values most, let him run away quickly. He is the dignified Chiwuheisha Crocodile Rock Doll. When have I heard such a ridiculous joke? Moses, I'm Sengoku. The voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. Looking at the phone bug that was placed on the table, Nico Robin was originally in charge of the call from the Navy's Shichibukai. K-Rockdoll's face sank, and he decided to pick it up again. "I'm K-Rockdar, it's been a long time since Marshal Sengoku." After the words disappeared, there was a brief dead silence in the other part of the phone bug. I am afraid that it was obvious that K-Rockdoll would appear. "K-Rockdoll, I'm glad to hear your voice, not someone else to perfunctory me." Sengoku cleared his throat and said, "Shibukai summoning order, you should know. As a member of Chiwahai, you should have not helped the world government and the Navy headquarters to complete their tasks for 3 years, so I hope you will come to assist this time and encircle the world destroyer Bondewald." As the Marshal of the Navy headquarters, Sengoku's confidence is not comparable to ordinary people. As soon as he opened his mouth, he went straight to the point. K-Rockdoll was already holding his breath, and snorted coldly, "Sengoku, did you make a mistake? Because last time, I refused to execute the call-up order. Did you deliberately let the retired old man Zephana go to Alabasta to pester me? Don't forget, once this kind of thing spreads, what will the other Chiwahai think? At that time, I am afraid it will be difficult for you to end it." The awe-inspiring voice, with an aggressive taste. Facing another brief silence from the phone bug, K-Rockdoll was planning to prepare for the next wave of mouth guns. The next moment, the reply came, but he couldn't help but be forced to stay in place. "Crocdar, what are you talking about? That old fellow Zepha, how could he have time to serve you? Don't take yourself too seriously in front of Zepha. If I go to invite him, I won't be able to invite him, let alone you." Chapter 567-Navy Spring. The answer that was extremely disturbing, at this moment, seemed to be filled with a magical sound, and it echoed in the conference room for a long time, and there was no way to disperse it. It's just that K-Rockdoll couldn't refute it for a moment. He clearly knew that with Sengoku's status and temperament, he wouldn't play tricks on him at such a juncture. Since he said now that Zepha did not come to Alabasta, it must not. So, who is the teacher Bastius mentioned just now? Or, this teacher doesn't exist at all and is just scaring him. Thinking of this, K-Rockdoll subconsciously hung up the phone bug. Hearing the busy tone coming from the phone bug, Sengoku's expression froze first in the office of the Admiral of the Navy headquarters, and the next moment he roared angrily. "Damn K-Rockdoll, he was talking nonsense just now, and now he hangs up on my phone again. I will definitely dismiss him next time we meet." Seeing the startled Sengoku, Kizaru and Akainu who were guarding here stood up in unison. "Since he doesn't come, it's useless to wait any longer. We should go. After all, we only rely on those guys, but we can't do it," Akainu said coldly. Kizaru couldn't help but crookedly said, "Marshal Sengoku, if you think you're so angry that you don't have a place to spread it, you can change it with me, and I'll stay at the headquarters for you to watch." Fuck me, you bastard. Sengoku glared at him and said, if you can't complete the mission this time, you will bring me back 10 pirates with a reward of over 100 million yuan. Damn carp, he hasn't shown his face yet. When he was leaving, he stole Lao Su's senbei. Next time we meet, I will tear him apart. Looking at Sengoku, who was about to run wild, and eating the deflated Kizaru, he also shrugged his shoulders and left with a kainu indifferently. In the eyes of Kizaru, there are many pirates in the New World who offer a reward of over 100 million. With his fruit ability, it is simply a large group. Moreover, for this kind of task, he has already played Chan Oil many times. After all, when it comes to making up for performance, Kizaru is in existence at the speed of light, and in the Navy headquarters, who can compare with it? Okay, Sengoku, don't be unlucky here. If Chiwahai can really be trusted, we old bones have already retired. Crane, who stayed here, suddenly said. However, I heard that Garp returned to the East China Sea this time. Under the recommendation of Laxus, he collected a lot of useful talents, not to mention Garp's grandson. There is also a pirate hunter Roroi Azoro. Sanji Kurozu from the restaurant on the sea, and a sniper with a long nose. His strength can reach the level of a captain. Quote. As long as there is more training, there is a great chance to become a lieutenant general, and maybe even have the ability to become a general. The slightly long voice made Sengoku recover a little from the rampage. He was stunned and said, these words, it's not that Cap has drunk too much, he's bragging. A place like the East China Sea doesn't feel like a genius. As the weakest existence in the 4 great seas, it was also because of Roger, the pirate king, who made a fool of himself when he was executed in Rog Town. They deceived people who had some strength to go out to sea one after another. Moreover, as a naval hero, Garp often finds excuses to go back to the East China Sea for a stroll. Those slightly stronger pirates have already been beaten by him as an excuse. The entire East China Sea was simply overwhelmed by a naval hero. This is Garp's original words, and I can't say anything else. Crane replied indifferently. However, the sea has become more and more chaotic recently, and the big skeleton demon doesn't know where to hide, so we should hurry as soon as possible. Find him. Thinking of the destruction of the Chinda prison and the chaos in the Chambord archipelago, the Crane, who is like a think tank, also feels that his brain is not enough. Don't worry, I have already sent more people to investigate, and I have also contacted the world government to let the elite CP intelligence organization pay attention to the whereabouts of the skeleton demon. Facing this guy makes me feel like I'm facing the 4 emperors. If I don't deal with him sooner, I'm afraid it will be a big worry. Crane also nodded in agreement, hesitated for a while and said, by the way, I received a contact from Bastiu not long ago, and he is now following Laxus in his practice. At the same time, he also sent me a copy of the document. This is an explanation of the 6th form and the profound meaning of the 6th form. The level of detail of this explanation is more detailed than that in our current naval boot camp. Among them, there are also the fusion use of the 6 styles, the iron finger gun, the iron foot, etc., all have annotations. Looking at the information that Crane took out, Sengoku's expression became more and more exciting. And, I couldn't help but say, these experiences are not comparable to the teaching system in the boot camp at all. The level of detail and the depth of explanation are completely standard textbooks. Sengoku with a shocked expression, Crane nodded heavily and said, when I first saw it, it was the same as your perception. Especially the explanation of the 6th-type profound meaning is more detailed than what Garp and you have formulated. If he is used on the senior generals of the Navy headquarters, it may be able to raise the overall combat power of our Navy to a higher level. Speaking of this, he said in a deep voice, at that time, our naval headquarters may not be the 3 generals, or there will be a situation where the 4 generals and the 5 generals stand side by side. Once this time comes, I'm afraid it will be the spring of our naval headquarters. Words fell, Sengoku's expression changed. The only version of the six-style profound meaning of the Navy headquarters is in the hands of high-level officials, and at least only major generals have the opportunity to observe one or two. When you reach the rank of lieutenant general, you can increase the number of times you apply for viewing each year. However, Sengoku admits that he and Garp are not teachers at all. They can indeed reach a certain height, but only when they are going to take notes and explain. But it became a little bit ignorant of the beginning and the end, and the notes I often took down could only be understood but not conveyed in words. This has led to the fact that very few people in the naval headquarters can achieve the existence of the 6 types of profound meanings. Moreover, because through the 6 forms, it takes more time and effort to comprehend the profound meaning, and it is possible that all the effort will go to waste. Instead, many people turn to the pursuit of devil fruits and domineering cultivation, completely ignoring the power of the 6 forms. After all, as the hero of the Navy headquarters, Garp, known as the Iron Fist, can punch a mountain with one punch. However, the development of the 6th type, even more so, sunk the ambitions of the Rocks pirates. This point alone has already explained the importance of the 6 forms. If it is matched with the advanced armament Hokage, the power will increase by 2 or 3 levels. If this manuscript is really popularized, it must be the spring of the Navy, as the Crane said. Chapter 568-60% Fidelity. Navy Spring. Sengoku's expression froze for a while, and he couldn't refute Crane's words at all. No. It should be said that there is still a touch of emotion. Over the years, the overall strength of the Navy has continued to grow, but compared with the era of the great pirates set off by Roger, the Pirate King, before his death, the ever-increasing pirate power is still growing slowly, which seems to be a bit gap. In particular, when one thinks of the New World, the remnants of the Rocks pirates have separated from the sea and become the king overlord in the mouth of the pirates. The back of Sengoku's head was aching. However, in order to make a force grow, more talents are needed to cultivate, and it takes time to judge, not words. At least, the only people who can hold the position of general in the Navy now are Akainu, Aokiji, and Kizaru. There are only 3 people, and the only ones who stand out a little among the lieutenant generals are Tautu and Chado. To cultivate new generals in a short period of time was something that Sengoku did not dare to imagine. However, now from the hands of Laxus, the application of the 6 forms profound truth is beyond their understanding. This is from the shallow to the deep, from the in-depth and shallow explanation methods, coupled with various application schemes. The combination of 6 styles and domineering, the fusion of profound meaning and kendo. Some ideas are completely beyond Sengoku's imagination. Once the Navy elites who have been dabbling in, or developing in this direction, get this manuscript, they can definitely avoid a lot of detours. Crane, inform Zephyr and ask him to come to the naval headquarters in person. Sengoku clenched the manuscript in his hand, and said quickly, "No, I'd better go personally and let him know about this world. And there are teachers who are better at teaching than he is. Otherwise, this guy usually sees the old man with a stern face, and only needs to beat me." Sengoku, who laughed out loud and walked out quickly. Crane sighed helplessly, frowning in thought. That day, this Laxus appeared on the pirate ship of the 9 Snakes. Garp had already made an offer to join the Navy as a brigadier general. Now it seems that the identity of the brigadier general is still a talent. Possessing the ability of a thunder-type natural devil fruit, and also understands the true meaning of the 6th-style profound meaning, once he grows up, he will definitely not be comparable to a mere lieutenant general. I'm afraid I can aspire to the throne of the general. No, I have to ask the guy Garp to have the cheek to ask. If he can be pulled into the naval headquarters, this is a ready-made general's combat power. He muttered to himself, and quickly followed. 3 days later, on a high tower in Yuba, Chinyu stood by the window and watched as many villagers brought various specialties and placed them in front of the soldiers stationed outside the tower, thanking them in the direction of Chinyu. Then turned to leave. It can be said that over the past 3 days, at least half of the 7 or 80,000 rebels and civilians gathered in Juba came here to make a pilgrimage. In the face of the drought of the past, life is worse than death. Now, with a single word, it will pour heavy rain for 7 days. It's a miracle for anyone. Moreover, the news quickly spread throughout Alabasta, and many refugees rushed towards Juba. Faced with this sudden scene, the originally opposing king's army and the rebel army also put aside their prejudices one by one, and took the lead in solving the current personnel governance situation. Juba, which had lost a large number of people due to desertification, ushered in a population reflux for the first time. Vivi, Cobra and Ecolem looked at each other and couldn't help but wink at Vivi. In the past 3 days of heavy rain, and the people who were brought back by Chinyu not long ago, after Wei Wei confirmed her identity, she was the vice president of Baroque Works and the strongest killer. For the future of Alabasta, Cobra was completely on Chinyu's body. If now, someone told Cobra that the Navy is more reliable than the skeleton demon, I'm afraid he'll be the first in a hurry. The rhythm is, first come 2 rains before talking. However, Cobra is the king of Alabasta, but the more important Chinyu is, the more restrained he is. Moreover, in Cobra's eyes, Chinyu and Wei Wei were obviously closer. This undoubtedly made Wei Wei his voice, and he would call Wei Wei for anything, no matter how big or small, and ask her to help spread the word. Seeing Cobra, who turned on the mode again, Vivi puffed out her cheeks, glared at Cobra, and said, Your Excellency Ains, Yuba has been raining heavily during this time, but the desertification is serious, and there is no problem at all for a moment. There is no way to recover. Your Majesty Ains, your identity is respected. My father cannot bear Ains Lord Ains to live here. I hope you can go to Albana to live temporarily. Albana. Chinyu turned his head and looked at Cobra, who was nodding his head with a restrained face, and said, Relax, you don't need to be too restrained in front of me. As for Arnaba, we don't need to go for the time being. Our guests should be arriving soon. Besides, didn't I say, there is a bigger gift for you? The expressions of the people present changed slightly. For them, the most terrifying thing is not the pirates, but the fact that even the country can shake the Chihuahua. It can be said that in such a place where the weak eat the strong, the strength reaches a certain level, enough to surpass a country. However, what made Wei Wei and others more concerned was the bigger gift Chinyu had mentioned over and over again. After all, in their eyes, nothing is more important than a rain, right? Skull Demon, you've won, Crocodile won't show up, I finally told him to leave. Daz, who was sitting in the corner of the room, suddenly spoke up. Shut up, Ains-sama is so kind that he will keep you by his side. Otherwise, you will die 10,000 times just based on what you have done at the Bar Rock workplace. Bell, who was standing beside Cobra, shouted coldly. However, he was quickly stopped by Chinyu and said, he and I still have a bet. If K. Rockdale comes and loses in my hands, he will join my command. That's why he can't get Rockdale to come, so he has an excuse to avoid me. Or do you think K. Rockdale can beat me? Having said that, Chinyu looked at Daz. Even Nico Robin, who fell into silence on the side, was no exception. Before they met Chinyu, in their eyes, K. Rockdale, who held the title of Chihuahua, was synonymous with power. But after experiencing the horror of the young man in front of him, everything was turned upside down. Faced with these words, they couldn't handle it. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, the fidelity of the characters has increased by 20%, and the current fidelity is 60%. Chapter 569 _ come to you. 60% fidelity. Chinyu raised his brows involuntarily. I thought that this day would come very late, I didn't expect it at all, and it came so soon. With a thought, the property panel opens directly. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, the fidelity of the Laxus character template has reached 60%. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, unlock the Thunder Dragon Slayer Magic Dragon Scale Transformation. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, unlock the Thunder and Lightning Suit. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, unlocking the profound meaning of dragon slaying, Ming Yulei. Chinyu couldn't help but be surprised by the ethereal system prompts that sounded one after another. Feeling the warm current flowing rapidly in my mind, everything related to dragon scale transformation, dragon slaying mystery, etc., was imprinted in my mind in detail. However, before Chinyu could taste it carefully, the sound of rapid footsteps swept in under the tower. Ain-sama, something's going bad, Crocodile is here. Seeing that he had transformed into a dog and rushed to Gaka in a hurry, Chinyu couldn't help but raise his brows. Before he could react, Daz, who was in the corner, rushed out first. You stop! Belle exclaimed anxiously, and was about to chase after him. However, Chinyu quickly stopped him and said, let him go, it's still useful for him to go. Useful. Looking at Chinyu with a warm smile on his face, the people present couldn't help but startled. In their eyes, Daz is already a loser. And he also secretly informed K-Roctal, and now he suddenly rushed out, shouldn't it become a variable? How can it be useful? 2 or 3 miles away from Juba. It was set up temporarily to control the influx of refugees. It is also the only stronghold that was not covered by heavy rain. However, as long as the refugees arrive here, they will be shocked by the sky, the black and white, and the clear scene. After all, in their eyes, the rain should have been uncontrollable. However, the king's army and the rebel army guarding here told them. The Great Skull said that if it rained 30 miles today, it must be 30 miles. Absolutely not one more step, nor one less step. It is for this reason that once you arrive here, you will definitely be shocked when you see this scene and hear this rumor. For everyone in the population of the Great Skeleton, it is even more respected. The few billion-dollar reward orders were posted on the wall and worshipped by them. The Skeleton King, I hope you can take a walk in other parts of Alabasta and get a few more rains so that we can get through the ordeal of the drought. An old man knelt in front of the reward order and prayed anxiously. However, before he could stand up, a huge black shadow shrouded down from the sky. In the end, in front of the reward order, the figure of K-Roctal condensed, looked up at the brand new reward order, and the clear sky not far away, his face gloomy to ultimate. Is he the one who ruined my good thing? Rockdale said coldly. 3 days ago, he returned to the rain feast, and after contacting Sengoku, he found out that Zephyr was not present in Alabasta at all. Then, I personally took over the Ba Rock Work Club, only to find that Yuba, who was in a drought, actually started to rain. No matter how much dance powder they use or how close they are, they can't take away a single point from the rain here. It seems that the rain on this piece of sky seems to take root here. This made K-Roctal, who hated water extremely, plan to fight to the death after the opponent came to the door. But as time passed, the other party was like a rock sinking into the sea, and there was no movement at all. In the end, he couldn't hold his breath and came to the door in person. This is the Great Skeleton, the hero of our Alabasta. Without him, we would all die of thirst. The old voice came from behind. The word hero, like an invisible hammer, strikes the depths of K-Roctal's soul. Not long ago, he was synonymous with heroes in this country. However, now it has been replaced. Do not. It should be said that his reputation, in front of this big skeleton demon who can spread clouds and rain, is basically a firefly and a bright moon competing for glory. Looking back at the old man behind him, K. Rockdale's face sank, and the golden hook in his left hand slammed out. Since you don't come to me, then I will kill everyone here and see how long you can hide. The cold light circulated on the golden hook, and the violent shot made the old man never think of it. The only thing that can be done is to stand in the same place stupidly, staring straightly. The golden hook quickly enlarges in the pupil. However, this thought just flashed in the old man's mind, and a black shadow took the lead and appeared in front of him. When the crisp metal collision sounded, and sparks were splashing. The collision, which was not too conceited at all, set off a gust of wind and rolled away. Looking at the figure that suddenly stopped in front of him, K. Rockdale's face sank and said, "Mr. I am very happy to see that you are not dead, but you interfered with me. If you don't give me a proper reason, don't blame my men for being ruthless." Faced with his former confidant, who suddenly appeared in front of him, K. Rockdale felt a little more joy in his heart. The behind-the-scenes boss of Pakistan Rock Works, K. Rockdale can't be overjoyed. However, this trace of joy just appeared, but the next moment, it was annihilated in my heart. Lord K. Rockdale, hurry up and escape, or you will surely die. Escape. Die. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with magic sound, hitting the depths of K. Rockdale's soul. Looking at Daz, who was standing in front of him, there was a ferocious look on his face, and he roared in anger. "You bastard, I am one of the 7 seas, the sand crocodile Rockdale, a born king. You offended me by saying this. Daz, give me death." Desert sword. The endless yellow sand gathered in K. Rockdale's right hand, and the next moment it turned into the shape of a treasured sword and slashed directly towards Daz. The violent scene made Daz's pupils shrink suddenly. He never imagined that, risking his own life, he rushed here to tip off the news, and he would be called a killer. However, this cannot be blamed on him, as a person with the ability to cut fruit quickly. Daz is also Tai Han. It is completely which pot is not mentioned, which pot is uncovered. Looking at the rapidly expanding attack in his pupils, he only had time to raise his hands to block. However, just as this thought came to mind, a lifeless hoarse voice suddenly sounded. "Shield of hatred." The simple 4 words were spit out, and the rapid sound of horse hooves suddenly sounded. A dark shadow took the lead and appeared behind K. Rockdale. The desert sword that was originally slashed down. At this moment, unexpectedly uncontrollably, he slashed behind him independently. Chapter 570-Unbeatable Xiaoqiang. Boom. The sharp slash, with a stern sound of breaking through the air. It slashed directly on the huge bone shield. The undead knight, who was more than 3 meters high, took 2 or 3 steps back, and his huge body swayed slightly. He raised the big knife in his hand and slashed down towards K. Rockdale's back. The violent scene made K. Rockdale's expression change involuntarily. Under the sway of the figure, it turned into yellow sand and scattered in the sky. Appeared again, and has come to the back of the undead knight. Without any bells and whistles, his right hand slapped the back of the undead knight like lightning. Desert prison. Boom. Endless yellow sand poured out from K. Rockdale's hands. It turned into dozens of tentacles and directly wrapped the undead knight into a zongzi. The next moment, with K. Rockdale's right hand, he suddenly caught it. Under the venting of the endless force, the huge skeleton of the undead knight shattered. Boom. The white bones were scattered over the desert. Looking at this scene, K. Rockdale's face sank, and he snorted coldly and said, "Daz, is this the skeleton demon you call it? It's really vulnerable and makes people feel ridiculous." For the reputation of the skeleton demon, K. Rockdale has heard of it. However, for him, the mountain is high and the emperor is far away, and the appearance of Qin Yu does not threaten his conspiracy plan at all. It's just that I didn't expect it to be found so quickly. In K. Rockthall's eyes, the skeleton demon is also a devil fruit power user, which is not much different from ordinary white bones. Roar. A low roar sounded suddenly. The huge sound of hooves, as if responding to Rockdale's question. Dozens of undead knights who were created by Qin Yu and guarded here instantly formed a torrent of charges, headed towards Crocodile. The huge and powerful scene converged into a torrent of bones, making the entire desert shake. Let Rockdale couldn't help but look back and follow the sound. After seeing clearly, these dozens of identical undead knights, Crocodile understood that Daz would look at Tai Hanhan's expression when he heard his mocking words just now. This horse riding is a wrong expression. If the skeleton and white bones just now were the great skeleton demon, then what are the dozens of skeletons in front of them that converged into a torrent? Sir, hurry up, he will be there soon, Daz said anxiously with a sullen expression. Go. K. Rockdale's face sank, and he shouted sharply, why should I leave? Today I will see if he has the ability to kill me. Desert Lan. The 5 fingers of the right hand are bluffed, and the endless sand waves gather wildly in the palm, turning into a small uzumaki. The next moment, without any bells and whistles, he swung head-on towards the incoming torrent of bones. Boom. Desert Uzumaki came out. It grew rapidly out of thin air, and in a blink of an eye, it rose to the sky. A huge desert hurricane was formed, involving a group of undead knights. At this moment, the existence of gravel, like the incarnation of countless sharp blades, shreds the undead knight shrouded in it. Bang bang bang. Countless bones were thrown out in the hurricane and scattered in the yellow sand. The violent scene has already alarmed the king's army and the rebel army in the refugee camp. When he saw K. Rockthall, Kosha's expression changed involuntarily. Are you the leader of the rebel army? I will give you a chance to surrender, otherwise you will be like the bones scattered on the ground. K. Rockthall's eyes turned in vain and fell on Kosha. In the face of Qin Yu's sidestepping, K. Rockthall completely gave up the so-called gentle method. He needs someone to be his puppet regime. And Kosha in front of him is undoubtedly the best choice. What shall we do, Leader Kosha? Seeing K. Rockthall's aggressive attitude, the adjutant standing behind Kosha couldn't help but ask. However, in the face of all this, Kosha stared at the bones scattered on the ground from beginning to end, except for a flash of surprise on his face at first. The next moment, he couldn't help shouting in a hurry, come on, Ain-sama, these skeleton soldiers, but Xiaoqiang who can't be beaten to death. Unbeatable Xiaoqiang. The inexplicable words made K. Rockthall startled at first. Soon, a dark fog appeared from the bones scattered on the ground. Immediately, as if being manipulated by the invisible big hand, under the watchful eyes of the public, he reformed the posture of the undead knight. That intact appearance made the pupils of many people shrink suddenly. Before everyone could react, dozens of undead knights suddenly raised their heads. The extinguished soul flame rekindled in the eye sockets. A hoarse and cold voice came out in unison. Undead / Boom. The dull thunderous sound of horse hooves sounded again. Dozens of undead knights rode their horses towards K. Rockdar again. The violent scene, let alone the melon-eating group, is no exception to Leonk Rockdal. The undead knight who valued the resurrection from the dead didn't have time to think about it. Together with the sandstorm in his right hand, he once again displayed the desert storm, and suddenly threw it out. Boom. The endless yellow sand hurricane shattered dozens of undead knights. However, as soon as the bones were scattered on the ground, they were restored to their original state in full view. Undead / A hoarse voice, without the slightest hint of emotion. Looking at the undead knight who charged again as if he could not kill Xiaoqiang. At this moment, in K. Rockthall's heart, there is only one sentence left. I even want to die. Damn skeleton demon, get out of here. After Krokdar threw a desert storm with his backhand to resist the impact of the undead knight, he roared in anger. However, as soon as the voice echoed, a hoarse voice came out from behind him without warning. K. Rockdale, please don't rush to die. Near the 2-meter white skeleton, the ghostly figure walked out of the torn portal. In an instant, K. Rockdale's nerves tensed. Before he could think about it, the yellow sand in his right hand rolled down and slashed toward his back. Desert sword. Boom. The sharp knife gang slashed down in the blink of an eye at a close distance. However, facing the scene in front of him, Chinyu raised his right hand slightly and slammed away. Boom. Under the collision with the slightest reluctance, the huge force was vented, setting off a large wave of air that rolled backwards. Looking at Chinyu's big boneless hand, it was actually covered by the pitch-black armament hockey. K. Rockdale's pupils shrank suddenly, and Chinyu's right 5 fingers suddenly clenched tightly. Boom. The big knife that the yellow sand turned into was crushed in response to the sound, under the splashing gravel. Rockdale's golden hook like lightning, and said with a warm smile, K. Rockdale. I caught you. Liu Ying 6 type profound truth the biggest wheel overlord spear. Chapter 571 still owe a gift. Armament hockey. K. Rockdale's expression changed suddenly. He didn't have time to think about it. He immediately activated the fruit ability, intending to elementalize it. However, at the moment when the thought first appeared, the pitch-black fist slammed into it. The speed was so fast that K. Rockdale had no time to resist. Boom. The sound that exploded like thunder brought an inexplicable smell of suffocation. The violent impact, at this moment, was like a dike burst, and it was vented frantically. Under the impact of invisible air waves, the surrounding desert land collapsed and sank. K. Rockdale, one of the 7 seas, flew upside down like a cannonball. The desert land that passed along the way seemed to be torn apart quickly by an invisible big hand. Under the watchful eyes of the public, it crashed into a rocky mountain more than 10 meters high. Boom. The huge force was vented, and the thick rock mountain collapsed directly. Rockdale's body, like endless yellow sand, directly collapsed in the 4 directions of the sky. Everyone who witnessed this scene, especially Daz, suddenly shrank their pupils, their faces filled with disbelief. He had already expected that there was a certain gap between K. Rockdale and Chinyu. Just as Chinyu said not long ago, they chose to stay in comfort, that is to abandon the road of the strong. As long as you are not blind, you can see that the gap between the 2 sides cannot be measured. The endless yellow sand regrouped again near the shattered huge rock. K. Rockdale with a gloomy face, a little messy shirt, and blood on the corners of his mouth. K. Rockdale, as a Chihuahua, you are considered a good fighting force, and I am also a person who loves talents. It is better for you to surrender and choose to surrender. Well, I don't want to kill you either. Persuade Chihuahua to surrender. Daz and others couldn't help but froze in place. No. It should be said that the people present were stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. Just ask the big pirates who even the Navy headquarters and even the whole sea agrees with, and the existence that even the world government can only appease with the title of Shichibukai. Now that someone is threatening to die, is this insulting the long-established sand crocodile Rockdale in the Shichibukai, or is it really possible? Messy thoughts flashed in the minds of everyone, and everyone's eyes swiped and locked on K. Rockdale's body. Rockdale would react to Chinyu's death threat. Okay, very good, what a megalomaniac. K. Rockdale's face was gloomy to ultimate. Chinyu's gaze, he shouted angrily, back then, Whitebeard didn't dare to speak like that in front of me. I didn't expect today that he would be looked down upon by a hairy brat. I want to show you what the rage of the strong is. You foolish people are buried in the endless sand with this arrogant person. You should know quickly why I chose to fight with you on this desert. The roars echoed like thunder. The power of the fruit dormant in K-Roctal's body rushes out. On the yellow sand land where he was originally, as if being stirred by an invisible big hand, a circle of ripples rippled rapidly and opened. The endless yellow sand was directly pulled up and rolled slowly like a wave. It felt as if there were giant beasts turning over on this desert land. People who are on the yellow sand have a feeling of being difficult and standing on their feet. This strange desert rolling is spreading rapidly towards the refugee camp. At this moment, K-Roctal feels like the master who controls this endless desert. Makes people feel inexplicably terrified. Princess Vivi, what should we do? Can Ains-sama win? Ikulem, who came by the bone dragon, asked worriedly. In the face of K-Roctal, the influence on this desert is gradually increasing, which is like a method like a god of domination. It just overturned their perception. In the system of devil fruit abilities, it is divided into 3 levels. Among them, the natural system possessed by K-Roctal is the first and the most difficult to obtain. Bell said solemnly. Second only to the natural department, it is the superhuman type, and finally, I and Gaka have the same animal type devil fruit ability. However, after a series of battles and Ains-sama's methods, it can be determined that the animal type devil fruit he possesses is probably in the form of a phantom human fruit skeleton in the animal system. This type of fruit has its characteristics and methods should not be inferior to those of the superhuman type, or even the natural type devil fruit. Quote. Having said that, Bell looked at Chinyu subconsciously and said, however, all of this is just my guess. The final result depends on whose fruit ability is developed more powerfully. As soon as these words fell, an inexplicable and oppressive atmosphere filled the air. Feeling the penetration of power into this desert, Crocodile looked up, and a ferocious smile flashed on his face. Little devil, your strength is indeed very good among the younger generation, but if you want to blame it, it is you, ignoring our predecessors. To what extent I can become Chihuahai, it is not by luck. The level of the bounty does not represent strength. Rock Doll roared again and again. The gloomy eyes turned in vain, locked on Chinyu's body, and looked at Chinyu with the same expression. He raised his hands suddenly and roared in anger. Today, I'm going to see, how dare you set foot in Alabasta. Sandstorm waves. Boom. The yellow sand in all directions, like the sea, was rolled up, forming huge waves more than 10 meters high. The huge momentum gives people a taste of rising from the sky and rolling in. The nerves of everyone who witnessed all of this were suddenly tense to ultimate. Especially the rebel army, the king's army and others in the refugee camp, facing the scene of being buried in the yellow sand in front of them, their hearts seemed to be tightly clenched by an invisible big hand. For them, facing this godlike attack method. He has no ability to protect himself at all, and the only thing he can do is to watch death come helplessly. However, just as this idea came into being, Chinyu, who was under attack, suddenly raised his head. The deep-set white bone sockets, under the skyrocketing soul flame, the moment the right hand clenched the scepter, he suddenly stomped toward the yellow sand. The hoarse and icy voice, without the slightest hint of emotion, has a very penetrating taste, hitting the depths of everyone's soul. I'm sorry, I almost forgot, I still owe Weiwei a big gift. Chapter 572-Super Magic World Change. You still owe a big gift. Inexplicably speaking, at this moment, everyone in the field couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Even K-Rock Doll is no exception. Looking at the yellow sand whistling from all directions. In their eyes, this so-called gift should not be able to be linked to the current predicament. Now, Chinyu said such words at this juncture, which undoubtedly gave people an intriguing feeling. Boy, are you so scared that you are confused? In this situation, I see how you can hide. K-Roctal roared angrily. However, Chin Yu moved. Taking one step, the huge magic power dormant in the body exploded like a frenzy. Turned into a ray of light, Jinchuriki column, and hit the sky above the 9 heavens, and even the backlogged lead cloud was penetrated in an instant. The scepter in his hand slammed toward the ground in full view. Super magic heaven and earth change. When colorful magic circles bloomed like fireworks under Chin Yu's feet. The instant the sky-high magic power exploded, it spread rapidly at the speed of ultimate. Wherever you pass along the way, whether it is air or yellow sand. It was as if time had stopped for a while. In it, whether it is Wei Wei and the others, or the crazy-looking K-Roctal, it is like falling into a deep swamp. It can be said that at this moment, the concentration of magic particles in the air is like the invisible waves of the sea. Enough to make one feel inexplicably suffocating. However, all this is just the beginning. Chin Yu's robes moved without wind, and the flames of the soul jumping in his eyes were blazing brightly. The intensity of the magic power diffused, together with the space around the body, also stirred up twisted ripples. The next moment, the 5 fingers of the right hand suddenly clenched the scepter, and the simple words were uttered. Earth. Boom. The endless yellow sand burst into a dazzling light at the moment when 2 words were swallowed. As a super magic and world-changing, it can rely on powerful magic power. Turn waters into deserts and icebergs into lava. What Chin Yu has to do now is to turn the endless yellow sand into the vast land. The endless rays of light bloom like a tide, and the dazzling rays of light capture the entire world in an instant. Facing the sudden capture of vision, the nerves of the people present were tense. Crocodile couldn't help it, and quickly pulled away and quickly retreated. Under this unknown and strange means, K-Rochdale knew that the safest way was to keep a sufficient distance. Boom. The dull collision sound resounded suddenly. Rockdale felt himself hitting a big tree. The strange feeling made his thoughts stop, and the snow-white world in front of him quickly melted and receded like ice and snow met a spring day. The scene that came into view again made K-Rochdale's pupils shrink suddenly, and his eye sockets almost split. As far as the eye can see, the originally endless yellow sand land has already turned into a green land at this moment. Vegetation, rivers and lakes, towering trees. Looking around, there is still a vast expanse of yellow sand, which has completely become a fairyland of Taoyuan. In particular, Wei Wei and the others who were on the bone dragon didn't have time to think about it, and hurriedly looked into the distance. As far as the eye can see, it is still an oasis. Looking at this miraculous scene, not to mention Wei Wei and the others, even K-Rochdale couldn't help rubbing his eyes anxiously. However, as long as they rubbed Yuvi's eyes, the miraculous scene in front of them was completely lingering. A moment ago, the yellow sand land dominated by K-Rochdale was completely occupied by the endless oasis. It's impossible, it's impossible. Who are you? What kind of devil fruit person are you? K-Rochdale suddenly came back to his senses and roared like crazy. Without any hesitation, he turned his right hand toward the ground, pressed it down suddenly, and roared again and again. The earth is dry. Boom. Endless fruit ability is motivated to ultimate. Rockdale's palm touched, the moisture was quickly absorbed away. Trees are withering, and the rock formations are turning into rolling yellow sand. Seeing this scene, the people present were stunned for a while. Recalling the rapid desertification of Alabasta in the past, could it be caused by K-Rochdale coming to touch the earth in the middle of the night? However, the situation of this yellow sand spreading has just rolled back. Before K-Rochdale was happy, under the green light blooming, he returned to normal again. Seeing this strange scene, when his pupils contracted, K-Roctal raised his head suddenly and stared at Chin Yu with resentment on his face. Don't waste your energy, I have magic power to imprison this world. Although it's not long, only about 5 minutes, it's enough to deal with you. Chin Yu said lightly. The transformed skeleton demon disintegrated before everyone's eyes. As the most powerful superposition magic in the Bone King world, in Chin Yu's current state, he can only perform it twice a day. Just now, in order to make the magic more powerful, Chin Yu directly covered a radius of tens of kilometers, exhausting the magic power in his body at once. At the same time, in order to avoid it, K-Roctal will desert the earth again, and Chin Yu will use up his magic power to maintain infinite self-repair for 5 minutes. This kind of method, in the world of the Bone King, would undoubtedly kill 1,000 enemies and lose 800. But for Chin Yu, who has other character templates, it is not enough to be afraid. It has already been switched to the posture of Laxus. However, this scene fell in the eyes of K-Roctal, and he undoubtedly saw a glimmer of hope. With bloodshot eyes, his eyes turned in vain, and at the moment when he was locked on Chin Yu's body, he said coldly, "You can't even maintain the shape of a skeleton. It seems that the blow just now is your limit. Now, let me see if the legendary skeleton demon can still be defiant after losing the power of the devil fruit." Sandstorm. Voice fell, and the 5 fingers of K-Roctal's right hand suddenly opened, and the yellow sand gathered in the palm of his hand, turning into a hurricane. He suddenly threw it towards Chin Yu. Boom! The moment the hurricane let go, it exploded in full view. The yellow sand rolled backwards, rose from the sky, and attacked Chin Yu in the air with a rolling gesture. At the same time, K-Roctal, who was standing in the same place, was like weathered and scattered with the wind. When he appeared again, he had already taken the lead and came behind Chin Yu. It can be said that all that has been done just now is just the bait for Roctal. The real killer move, he still likes to control it. Moreover, seeing Chin Yu lose the ability of devil fruit, Roctal likes to take advantage of this opportunity to give Chin Yu the most fatal blow. Desert King Kong Sword. Along with the roar, the yellow sand in K-Roctal's hand was rolled back and turned into 3 large yellow sand knives. Without any bells and whistles, he slashed down towards Chin Yu's back. In his eyes, Chin Yu, who lost his fruit ability, will surely die under this blow. Chapter 573 _ Roctal. PFF'd. The air is tearing, the sand is roaring. The face of K-Roctal's ultimate move, the air along the way swelled with endless ripples. At a close distance, the attack was instantly added. In the eyes of Roctal, victory was in sight. Boom! The sound of thunder suddenly echoed. The golden electric light splattered like a piece of training, and the crackling arc flowed under it. K-Roctal just felt a flower in front of his eyes, the target he was trying to snip at, but in sight, annihilated out of thin air. Turned into an electric light, rising from the sky. Holding the Wanjun posture, the yellow sand slashing down with force was lost in an instant. Towards the Rocky Mountain hundreds of meters away, whizzing away. Boom! The Rocky Mountain of dozens of meters was smashed to the ground by a knife in 2 pieces under the watchful eyes of the public, making a thunderous crash. It even set off a large wave of sand and dust, and rolled back around. However, facing all this, K-Roctal didn't have time to think about it, and looked behind him hastily. His eager eyes instantly locked on Chin Yu, who was more than 10 meters away. Facing the close change just now, he is now eager to verify one thing. The crackling thunder light swam around Chin Yu's body quickly. The golden thunder arc, at this moment, seems extremely annoying. No, it's impossible, you actually broke the legend and possessed 2 devil fruits at the same time. K-Roctal's expression changed drastically, and he roared like crazy. Desert Sword. Under the gathering of the yellow sand in the right hand, it is a knife towards Chinyu. However, in the face of all this, Chinyu did not retreat. The moment Huo Ran raised his head, a playful smile flashed on his cold and arrogant cheeks. Looking at the incoming attack, there was no thought of dodging at all. His hands clenched suddenly, his muscles bulging like a rock. The next moment, the low voice of Dragon Roar exploded in Chinyu's body. Thunder Dragon Slayer Magic Dragon Scale Transformation. Boom! The magic power dormant in the body was detonated in an instant. Endless thunder light rose into the sky, and the incoming desert sword was directly smashed into pieces. At the same time, Chinyu's cheeks flashed a ferocious look, and his eyes flashed with lightning. The muscles of the whole body bulged like a rock, and the golden scales and armor patterns spread rapidly on the body. The body that was originally more than 2 meters was abruptly raised to nearly 3 meters. There was a trace of lightning on the surface of the body, and the lightning quickly circling and twisting turned into a combat suit. However, all this was just the beginning. The pitch-black armament haki quickly spread across Chinyu's body. At this moment, Chinyu felt like the thunder dragon transformed by Gajalu in fairy tale. In the face of this huge force full of limbs, Chinyu suddenly raised his head and locked on K-Roctal's body instantly. The next moment, without any bells and whistles, he stepped out in front of everyone's eyes. Boom! Wherever he settled, the ground seemed to be struck by lightning. At the moment when it collapsed, Chinyu's huge figure disappeared out of thin air. Appeared again, and it has come to the front of K-Roctal. Too fast. This is the only thought of Roctal, at this moment. Facing Chinyu's rapidly dilated pupils, he didn't have time to think about it, so he quickly raised his hands to block. He had thought about elementalization, but faced armament haki. All this seemed pale. The profound truth of Thunder Dragon Slayer magic, Ming Yulei. Endless thunder light, at the moment when the 5 fingers are suddenly clenched, frantically poured into the right hand. The golden light that blooms, flashes with a trace of blood yuhi. The next moment, it turned into a frenzy, as if cutting through the sky, smashing on K-Roctal's body. Boom! The sound of rolling thunder exploded like a frenzy. The blood-like lightning of Yuhi, the gorilla, swept across the earth like a wild dragon. Everywhere along the way, no matter whether it is rocks, big trees, or even the rocky ground, it is as vulnerable as paper paste, and it is directly smashed and opened. K-Roctal, who was in it, intertwined his hands, accompanied by the crisp sound of bones breaking, and slammed off in front of everyone's eyes. Like a raging tide, the cathartic lightning impact, with unabated power, rushed straight into K-Roctal's chest. Boom! Close to 3 meters, the body like an iron tower. Under this blow, like an arrow from the string, it flew out directly. Under the huge impact, all the trees along the way were shattered. In the end, the heavy impact hit the rocky cliffs tens of meters high, thousands of meters away. The huge impact force and the violent thunder light directly shattered the thick rock wall. A mouthful of hot blood spurted out from K-Roctal's mouth. The sternum was even more shattered, and the entire chest collapsed in a shocking gesture. Dissipated, K-Roctal, who was separated by 1,000 meters, just had time, rolled his eyes hard, and glanced at Chinyu one more time. It is impossible to spit out the words that come to the mouth. The next moment, he tilted his head and died of anger. Ming Yulei. As one of Lax's strongest killing moves. It is to accumulate the magic power of the whole body at one point, and at the moment of collision, it will directly detonate the attack like a raging wave. The accumulated violent thunder light will also penetrate into the human body instantly, forming a direct impact. Unleash the power of one-hit kills. In the original book, Laxus directly killed Jura in Holy 10 with this move. Dead, dead. Shibukai, Krokdar was killed. I don't know who exclaimed. Daz, who was standing in the distance and watching the battle, was full of disbelief. Seeing that there was no sound and no heaving of his chest, Krokdal couldn't help but fell to his knees with a thud. All along, in Daz's eyes, Krokdal is like a mountain, giving him an insurmountable feeling. A moment ago, although he kept telling Krokdar to escape, otherwise he would definitely die. But for him, it was nothing more than to make Rockdale retreat. He firmly believed that Chinyu might be able to defeat Krokdal. But there is absolutely no way to kill him. However, from the very beginning, Chinyu had the upper hand when it came to armament hockey and the 6 forms of body art. In the confrontation of the fruit's ability in the back, the means of changing the world, it is even more pressing the Shasha fruit. In the end, Chinyu, who had 2 fruits in one body, showed the ability of the second devil fruit. All of this has long been doomed to the outcome of the battle. The scale of victory has already tilted towards Chinyu. It can be said that in this battle, Krokdal died not unjustly. It's not that he is too weak as Chiwahai. On the contrary, the skeleton demon is too strong. The $1 billion bounty is not a vain name. Chapter 574 Do you believe I can resurrect him? The huge battlefield fell into an inexplicable silence. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them and couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. In their eyes, Krokdal is a rare powerhouse among pirates. Even Alabasta, the so-called desert country, can only be wary in the face of such existence. However, now it was nailed to the wall with a punch. If you don't see it with your own eyes, who wants to believe that the scene in front of you is true? Daz. Chinyu dissipated the power that filled his body with dragon scales, and looked back at Mr1. At this glance, the expression of Nico Robin on the side changed slightly and said, Mr. 1 is willing to admit defeat. At this time, it is not worth your life. For joining Chinyu's command, Nico Robin did not resist much. At least, in his eyes, no matter if he is working in Barak, working for the Rock Doll, or join Chinyu's command. Everything is for blessing. Now Chinyu not only stopped, he was airborne in Alabasta with a reward of 1 billion. He also killed Krokdal in seconds with his crushing power. With all this alone, Nico Robin has no choice. No, kill me, Daz said in a deep voice. Nico Robin's expression stiffened. She has been absconding everywhere, and in order to survive, she will give her life to Krokdal. I never thought that Daz, the most powerful bounty hunter in the West Sea, would come this far for Krokdal. Chinyu was not surprised by this. In the original book, Daz can be regarded as a true companion of Krokdal. He was able to be rescued by Mr3, but he was willing to have no mood because of Krokdal's words. Together, they refused the chance to be rescued and were sent directly to the underwater prison. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, Ains our gong, the fidelity has been increased to 75%. Congratulations to the host, unlocking the 8th order resurrection of the dead. Congratulations to the host, unlocking the permission to summon the great tomb of Narasak. A series of system ethereal prompting sounds echoed in my mind. Chinyu raised his brows and smiled genially. Originally, Chinyu felt a little regretful about Krokdal's death. Although, I knew early on that the Bone King had the means of resurrection. But I thought it would take a long time to unlock it. I never thought that it would suddenly be unlocked in advance. However, seeing that Yuba, who was originally a desert, has directly evolved into an oasis under the change of the super magic world. This kind of miraculous scene, once it really spreads completely, will definitely shock the Great Channel and even the entire world. At that time, Chinyu will get more world turbulence points to unlock the world's restraint on him. Chin-Yu carefully reviewed the information in his mind, and then withdrew from the space of consciousness. Looking at Daz with a determined face, he said, I didn't expect that you would rather die than work for me. For your chivalry's sake, if I tell you that I can resurrect K. Rockthal, will you make another deal with me? As long as you are willing to work for me for 3 years, the resurrected K. Rockthal will also work for me for 3 years. After 3 years, you will be free and you will be strangers to me from now on. Of course, you can also reject my proposal as you did just now. Perhaps, to your ears, this sounds so fantastic. The slightly elusive voice reverberated between heaven and earth, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. Not to mention Daz, even Wei Wei and the others couldn't come back to their senses. The moment before, K. Rockthal was beheaded in front of them. That is, the dead can no longer die, the body is still hot. Now Chin-Yu turned his head and told them that he could resurrect the dead. Is this writing a joke? Daz, follow with K. Rockthal, Ains-sama won't make fun of this kind of thing. Nico Robin couldn't help but said. About Rockthal. However, now she is working under Chin-Yu's command. Since Chin-Yu intends to let Mr. One and Rockthal work for him for 3 years. As his subordinate, Nico Robin still needs to use all feasible methods to accomplish this task. Daz was stunned, looking at the gradually receding figure and the huge oasis here. If it is said that the resurrection of the dead is a dream-like thing, then this means of changing the world. Wasn't it the same before Chin-Yu did it? Thinking of this, Daz bit Kiba, hurriedly carried K. Rockthal,'s body on his back, and followed Chin-Yu away quickly. At the same time, Wei Wei also followed suit. After seeing Chin-Yu's various miraculous methods with his own eyes, Wei Wei is like a bridge between Alabasta and Chin-Yu. Looking at the vegetation along the way, she really hoped that Chin-Yu would perform 2 more miracles to save Alabasta from the ordeal of the drought. Mosamoxi, teacher, I'm Bastius. The voice of the phone bug rang suddenly. Chin-Yu frowned, but still connected the phone bug. He knew very well that this kind of thing couldn't contain fire. Instead, let others pass the news to the Navy headquarters. It is better to pass it on in person, so that the movements of the Navy headquarters can also be fully applauded by the master. I'm Laxus, speak up. As for the character template of Laxus, it is originally a cold personality, and it is not obvious that the anger is relieved. As soon as the phone was connected, Bastius didn't care, and hurriedly said, Teacher, 3 days ago, I met K. Rockdale in the rain banquet. He encouraged pirates to loot merchants and civilians, and then played the role of a hero. Rescued them. Do I need to report this matter to the Navy headquarters and let them investigate in person? In Bastiu's eyes, Shichibu Heike Rockdar is a great pirate recognized by the Navy and even the world government. He recognized the strength of Laxus. However, even more reluctant, his teacher took risks. If the Navy headquarters can come forward, that would be the best. However, this idea just sprouted in Bastiu's mind. The next moment, the words that fell in his ears made his expression stiff. No need, K. Rockthal has been killed by me. However, he was accidentally killed by me and the skeleton demon, and the body was taken away by the skeleton demon. Right now, Chin-Yu's tuba has not been unlocked. Therefore, I don't want the identity of Laxus and the identity of the skeleton demon to be confused. The most effective way is to take the initiative to inform, to confuse the audience. Old teacher, you said that the great skeleton demon appeared in Alabasta and unexpectedly joined forces with you to kill K. Rockthal. Bastiu suddenly woke up and asked anxiously. Chapter 575-Navy Boot Camp. The existence of the great skeleton demon was simply a lingering shadow to Bastius. With that powerful strength and endless means, even the Navy headquarters was played with applause. However, Now Chinyu actually told him that the great skeleton demon appeared in Alabasta. He also joined forces with the dignified Chiwahai and K. Rockville to kill him. If you hadn't heard it with your own ears, who would want to believe that it was all true? Later, Princess Weiwei will give you an official explanation. Chinyu didn't explain too much. Sometimes, the more you talk, the more flaws you get. Moreover, the most convincing one was Vivi from Alabasta, the former royal family of the dragons. Weiwei, who was following Chinyu's side, heard the words, her expression changed slightly, and she quickly nodded in agreement. Unlike Bastius, who was kept in the dark. They had known for a long time that Uchiha Chinyu, Ains Gong, and Laxus were the same person. Weiwei was not sure why Chinyu did this. However, since Chinyu appeared as the Bone King, not only did it give Juba 7 days of majestic reign, but also just now, turned the yellow sandy land of Juba into a boundless oasis. These kindnesses alone are enough for Weiwei to give Chinyu a lie. Lord Ains, don't worry, there weren't many people watching the battle just now. I'll send an order immediately and ask them to keep their word. Weiwei expressed her stance in a hurry. At the same time, in the name of my father, I will report the incident to the Navy headquarters. Seeing Weiwei, who suddenly became serious, Chinyu stopped and patted her shoulder and said, I don't worry about you doing things. Also, don't worry, I have no plans for Alabasta. At the same time, the Navy headquarters, in the boot camp. The huge square was filled with new recruits for training. Zepha, who retired as a former admiral and became the chief instructor of the recruits, looked around the queue of recruits with a serious face. When he saw some outstanding students, there was a hint of comfort in the depths of his eyes. It can be said that as a teacher, there is nothing comparable to the newcomers who have been cultivated by oneself and can successfully walk out of the boot camp. Becoming a pillar of the Navy is even more worthy of making people feel happy. Thinking of the upcoming recruits, graduation act soon, Zepha's face became more solemn, and he shouted in a deep voice, Today, everyone is gathered here, that's because, next, you will participate as recruits. See combat exercises. Quote. In the training camp, you may be very poor, or you may have just passed the standard, and some have good talents, with strength beyond ordinary people, reaching the level of superhuman. However, once you walk out of this gate, in the eyes of this old man, it is nothing but a fart. This old man is enough to beat a group of you, but it is still the kind that destroys the group. The awe-inspiring voice reverberated between heaven and earth, and there was no way to disperse it for a long time. It's just that the Navy soldiers below obviously didn't take it seriously. It can be said that this kind of admonishment has already been heard by them in the 3 years of the Navy headquarters. And, the more I listened, the more cordial it was. Looking at the expressionless recruits below, the cold arrogance on Zepha's face also slightly restrained, and said, After half a month, I will apply for you to go to the Great Channel and participate in the actual combat assessment. You are all elites among the recruits in the Navy, so the assigned assessment tasks are also different. Anyone with a reward of more than 10 million pirates will directly become a major, and a pirate with a reward of 30 million Bailey can make you a lieutenant colonel. Pirates with a reward of 50 million will make you colonels. When you have the ability to arrest pirates with a reward of 100 million, you will be brigadiers. Speaking of which, Zepha's tiger eyes swept across the field like torches, and finally landed on the 4 most important confidants, shouting sharply, However, I can tell you in a responsible manner. As soon as you walk out of the boot camp, there are very few people who can make an exception to become a commodore, at least not among you. If you think that the old man is talking nonsense, then please show the strength of a Kainu Chingzi and those little devils, otherwise don't be a hero in front of this old man, and don't set your goals too high. If possible, I would rather you fail than lose your life. To implement the justice of the Navy, you need to live, you know. No. Dozens of Navy elites shouted in unison. In the face of this powerful response, Zepha's old face couldn't help but feel a little more moist. Haha, I didn't expect Zepha. You have trained a group of talents for the Navy headquarters. Next time I see the 5 old men, I will ask them to praise you and increase the military spending of the recruit camp. Sengoku's voice came suddenly. Sengoku, who has changed from normal, Crane is a little surprised, but he also knows clearly why Sengoku has undergone such a huge change. After all, in the past 3 days, they have thoroughly studied the 6-style handout from Laxus that Bastius passed down. Originally, I was troubled by the profound meanings of the 6 forms, but after reading this handout, I felt as if I had opened up the 2 veins of Ren and Du in an instant, and they had become fully integrated. Isn't this Marshal Sengoku? He has been sitting in the atrium of the headquarters and rarely comes to the boot camp in the rear. Marshal Sengoku, knowing that there are so many elites in our class, did you make an exception to come here to see it? The scene suddenly became a little noisy. For the Navy recruits, the most yearning, in addition to the general, is the position of the Marshal of the Navy. Sengoku is able to ascend to this position, no matter in terms of strength or intelligence, it is beyond the reach of ordinary people. What's more, the naval headquarters and the boot camp are connected. But the 2 sides are too far apart. If you have to explain, it is one at the mouth of the sea and the other at the inland of the Yuhi land. It's just that there is a road between the 2, and there are naval soldiers and generals' families in the middle. Shut up and give me all the silence. Zepha's face sank, and he shouted angrily, can the appearance of an old man make you ignore the military regulations? Your actions just now have disgraced my old face. Now I want you to run around the playground 50 laps. If you don't complete it before noon, you will have nothing to eat. The awe-inspiring voice echoed in the huge square. In the face of this unquestionable order, the recruits present smiled bitterly, but did not mean to refute at all. Among them, the powerful and smart people have already rushed out first. That appearance is more like showing strength. Chapter 576-doubts from Zepha. In the huge square, the sound of breaking the air suddenly echoed. The 4 who took the lead were the rookie kings that Zepha valued. Running 50 laps around the 5,000-meter square, for them, there is no pressure at all. And those Navy recruits who knew it later, after they understood, they rushed out one after another. Right now, they are 3 months away from graduating in training camp. Sengoku of the Navy headquarters to appear in the boot camp. As long as the master performs well, he may be remembered by the marshal, and it will not be a problem in the future. Looking at the afterimages swept up in the playground, Sengoku was stunned at first, and then laughed out loud. Zepha, it seems that the newcomers you have cultivated this time really surprised me. If the guy Carp knew about it, he would never be able to refute it. After all, that guy always said that his way of cultivating new people is definitely better than yours. Yesterday's former classmates, Sengoku, Carp, and Zepha are also competitors. It felt like Garp was like Kyabu, Sengoku was Aki, and Zepha was Akainu. It's just that Carp's work attitude is more sloppy than that of Kizaru, who has received his salary. The so-called general appointment, he did not pay attention to it at all, but instead occupied the position of a lieutenant general. But Zepha and Sengoku are different, they are rivals to become marshals. It's a pity that in the end, Zepha's family was killed by pirates, and he was depressed for a while. With his great strength and intelligence, Sengoku took the position of the marshal and ended this period of competition. Looking at the juniors competing with each other on the playground now makes Sengoku inevitably recall. At the same time, when I think about it, the students of this class are so outstanding. If Laxus's 6-style lecture notes are used, these elite recruits will definitely be reborn and their strength will be improved to a higher level. HMPH, old man Sengoku, you're not an idler. You're not planning to come here. Let's dig people in advance. Zephyr snorted coldly and said, don't forget the course I set. If you haven't experienced sea battles in the assessment, they are not yet a general, they are still newcomers. Quote. As for that guy Carp, he is a fart compared to me. I have spent 20 to 30 years of hard work here to study the way of training new recruits. For the 6th style, domineering and other guiding experience, it is not that guy who can compared. As soon as he opened his mouth, Zephyr suppressed Garp mercilessly. Sengoku touched the tip of his nose helplessly, and subconsciously looked at Crane. It can be said that after losing his family and at the same time retired in the naval headquarters, for Zephyr, what makes him most proud of is training a group of recruits. However, after Zephyr took over the training of recruits, the training efficiency of those major generals and lieutenant generals who were transferred over was indeed higher than in the past. Even the 3 current admirals of the Navy are from Zephyr's subordinates. That's enough to show his high credit, not bragging. It's just that, looking at Zephyr who made such a vow, Sengoku had the joy on his face, and when he spoke, he didn't know where to start. You can't tell Zephyr right away. I'm here today because someone is better than you, the new recruit chief instructor. Feeling Sengoku's look for help, the Crane frowned and said, Zephyr, Sengoku said that he came to see you this time because he had a big matter to discuss with you. I was worried about his safety, and Carp wasn't there, so I followed him. Talk to Sengoku for details. Quote. You. Sengoku's eyes almost killed him. Unexpectedly, the Crane betrayed him perfectly as soon as he opened his mouth. Looking at Zephyr with a serious face, Sengoku coughed dryly and said, well, in fact, it's not a big deal. Just not long ago, Bastius worshipped a Grandmaster 6 forms and 6 forms profound truth, and he proposed the lecture notes are quite good, so I brought them to study it with you. Quote. The small voice, at this moment, seemed to be infused with a magic sound and could not be dissipated for a long time. Looking at Zephyr's gradually gloomy expression, Sengoku really hoped that as soon as he said these words, they would just go away with the wind. Zephyr couldn't hear clearly. Ahem, Zephyr, I don't really mean anything. Feeling that the atmosphere in the field gradually became suppressed, Sengoku couldn't help but cough dryly. No other meaning. Zephyr snorted coldly and asked back. I see what you mean, just like Cap's ignorant guy, thinks someone's training method is better than mine. Old man, you have been in charge of the training of naval recruits for decades. You are now telling me that an unknown person who jumped out of nowhere has a more scientific approach to the 6th form and 6th form profound truth than what I have instructed. Having said that, Zephyr looked at Sengoku and said word by word, Sengoku, you are an old man who underestimates you, please come back. Half a month later, I will bring this group of newcomers back to you guy. There are 2 good seedlings among them, and they should be able to reach the Brigadier General. For Zephyr, he originally planned to let these newcomers guard against arrogance and impatience, and deliberately devalued them to nothing. But really, among the 4 people he valued the most, 2 were not only good at physical arts, but also possess the ability of devil fruit. This method is 1 + 1, but it is definitely not comparable to people of the same age. Maybe it's not as high as Akainu Chinzi and the others, but it's still okay to be a brigadier general. Now, in the face of Sengoku's doubts, Zephyr is also going out of his way. Looking at Zephyr who gave the order to evict the guest as soon as he opened his mouth, Sengoku also knew that this old man was really angry. However, thinking of the wonderful lecture from Laxus, Sengoku still bit Kiba and said, Zephyr, I'm not here to fight you. However, recruit training is fresh blood for the Navy headquarters. I think this stand-up handout is a good reference for recruits. If you can, I hope you can take a look. Zephyr, Sengoku is right. If you think it's not possible and you need to refute it, you might as well read it. Crane couldn't help but persuade. After all, along the way, she and Sengoku spent sleepless nights, almost sleeping together. Continue to study these 6 types of handouts. Moreover, with the in-depth study, he was completely shocked by the various ideas proposed by Nalaxes, the general direction of extension, etc. At least, it was much more perfect and wonderful than the lecture notes kept in their naval headquarters. It turns out that the crane also thinks so. Zepha's face sank, and he snorted coldly. Okay, for the sake of the 2 of you, I will make an exception. However, whether it's worth my promotion, and whether this lecture is useful or not, it's not you and me who have the final say, it's these students who have the final say. If I'm going to try it, I need to pick a few students out to try it out. Chapter 577 I seem to have learned. Then let's test it. Seeing Zepha let go, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. In his eyes, this 6-style handout from Laxus would definitely impress the old stubborn Zepha. However, the premise is how to make Zepha accept it. Now Zepha suggests that recruits try it, which is undoubtedly more credible. After all, if Zepha couldn't accept it and refused, it would not be a good thing. HMPH, looking at you, you seem to have confidence in the 6-style lecture notes of Laxus. Zepha snorted coldly. Don't forget how the 6 forms were developed, and how they are deduced to the present level. That Laxus, in this sea, has no reputation at all. You admire him so much, I'm just worried that you will mislead your children. Looking at ZFA, who was stubborn as soon as he opened his mouth like a talker, Crane also felt his temples swell. After rubbing it, he said, okay, let others try it if this thing is useful. I believe this method is the fairest and most convincing. HMPH, let's start then. I hope you can admit this result in the end. Zepha snorted coldly and looked at the playground. Ain, Bins, come here for me. Running fast, the 2 who were ahead of the others by a full lap suddenly stopped. Looking at Zepha with a gloomy face, he clearly knew that this was the old way that he only appeared when he lost his temper on weekdays. After the 2 couldn't help looking at each other, they still shaved their heads and moved quickly. Don't hurry up yet, it looks like you're dawdling, isn't the training enough? Zepha snorted coldly and urged. Facing Sengoku and Crane, Zepha could not wait to let the recruits he trained use his strength to suckle. Watching this scene, Sengoku and Suru became even more silent. Whizzing. 2 air-braking sounds clearly accelerated rapidly. During a few ups and downs, I just felt a flower in front of my eyes, and 2 slightly immature faces appeared. Do not. It should be said that a more mature recruits have seen Marshal Sengoku and Chief Crane staff. Ain and Bins invariably performed a standard military salute. The skill is agile and the speed is fast. It's really good. The 6-style shaving is very fast. I think your Dao strength value is at least 400, right? Sengoku said with a gratified smile. HMPH, Sengoku, do you think it's easy for a rookie to reach 400 Dao strength? A pure physique expert, 500 can be called a Superman, and only a madman like CP can achieve it after training since childhood. Zepha snorted coldly and took the lead. Said. Their Dao strength value is only about 380. Combined with the ability of the Devil Fruit, ordinary brigadier generals are not their opponents. Some major generals who are not high in level, or who are not enterprising, may also lose if they underestimate the enemy. Quote. Ain and Bins were also a little embarrassed looking at Zepha, who was not busy selling. However, as Zepha's subordinate, this year's best freshman, this strength is not touted. Nearly 400 points of strength, and possess the ability of Devil Fruit. It's not as simple as 1 + 1. Okay, don't quarrel between the 2 of you. Isn't it shameful in front of the juniors? He gave them a white look and quickly changed the subject. This time I called you here to do a small experiment. In order to ensure fairness, let's talk about what you are good at in the 6 styles. Experiment. Ayin couldn't help but be startled, but she quickly returned to the gods. I'm only good at shaving and moon steps. Recently, I tried to learn Lanjiao, but I just encountered a bottleneck and couldn't break through. I'm good at 6-style shaving and moonwalking, but I can't use my finger gun. Binz also hurriedly responded. Sengoku and Suru nodded in response to the two's answers. As a recruit, you can learn the 2 basic 6 styles in the recruit camp. Looking at the sea, he can be regarded as a little genius. Seeing that Zephyr also nodded to confirm, Sengoku took out the manuscript with his backhand slightly cherished. This is the latest 6-style lecture. I hope it will be useful to you, and there are some notes next to it, but what you see must not be spread to the outside world, otherwise don't blame the old man for starting a teacher. Sengoku reminded in a deep voice. I know. Ain and Binz froze for a moment, then quickly responded. At the same time, he took over the manuscript of the 6th form and quickly flipped through it. For the newcomers. When you get the lecture notes about the 6 forms, of course, the first time you turn to a roadblock. After seeing the above notes about the 6-style Lanjiao, Yinmei's pupils shrank slightly. 6-style is to use a small amount of qi to display the attack method, and qi is the root of the 2-color domineering. In order to use Lan's feet, you need to combine the speed of shaving and moon steps, and then use your legs to perform vacuum slashes. A series of text annotations were directly imprinted in Ain's mind. It was miraculously confirmed with the somewhat crappy Navy 6-style lecture notes. Moreover, the places that I didn't understand at first, and the main points of shimming, have a feeling of being a matter of course. If you have to find an explanation, it is probably a stroke of genius. Okay, Ain, you've watched it for 10 minutes. If you don't understand, let Binz try it out. When the results come up, you can send this superficial old man away. Zephyr urged impatiently. Sengoku frowned and said, Zephyr, studying is not just a matter of time. 10 minutes is probably too short, at least a day or 2. 1 or 2 days. Zephyr glared and said, why don't you say 1 or 2 years, or let me guide the training from scratch, if so, what's the use of this thing? Okay, after you finish reading, go back to me and continue running. I'm in a bad mood today, so everyone will add 50 laps. If you can't finish the 100 laps at noon, everyone will have nothing to eat. Looking at Zephyr, who turned around and asked for a newcomer, Sengoku stopped talking. In the end, the words that came to his mouth were swallowed back into his stomach. Since we can't communicate right now, we can only try it when the next batch of recruits are trained. Teacher Zephyr, I seem to have learned how to use the feet. Me too, I seem to know how to use a finger gun. The timid words rang out suddenly. Sengoku and Crane, who were present, suddenly stiffened. For this answer, all 3 of them may lie. However, the people who say this now are Ain and Binz who participated in the experiment. This is Zephyr's student, and he will never brag about a brute force at such a juncture to make Zephyr lose face, right? Seeing that the 2 of them were a little excited, but with a little stage fright, Zephyr's expression suddenly became gloomy. Chapter 578 Seriously Underestimated. On the huge high platform, it fell into a dead silence. Looking at Zephyr's livid face, the atmosphere became more and more depressed. Yin, what you said just now, repeat it to me. Zephyr shouted in a deep voice. Yin looked stunned, and said in a weak voice like a mosquito, I seem to have learned how to get rid of feet. If the teacher doesn't believe me, I'm willing to give it a try. Teacher, don't embarrass Ain. If you don't believe me, you can test me. Binz said hurriedly. Seeing the stubborn faces of the 2 of them, Zephyr's face became more and more gloomy, and said, okay, you didn't know how to do it in the morning test, but now you tell me that you have learned it. Since you are insisting in front of outsiders, then give me the test. If you fail, you are not eligible to participate in the recruit assessment in half a month. The awe-inspiring voice was spit out, and there was an unquestionable taste between the words. After all, this time, in front of two old rivals, Zephyr didn't want to lose face. Moreover, he did not believe that an unknown person who jumped out of nowhere could be worth the majority of his teaching career. Zephyr, Sengoku whispered helplessly. However, he was quickly stopped by the crane. This time they came to make this Navy handout applicable to boot camp. Now that Zephyr is willing to let Ain and Binz try, it may not be a bad thing. You can feel free to try, even if you fail, I will help you to intercede, so don't be under any psychological pressure. He opened his mouth to persuade. Ain and Binz, after looking at Zephyr one more time, walked quickly to the assessment site. This assessment site is as big as a basketball court, with more than 10 stone statues placed on it. However, these stone statues are covered with traces of attacks, including slashing, shooting and so on. Yin, you go first. If you can't leave an inch-deep slashing mark on the stone statue with your languid feet, you will be considered a failure. Zephyr snorted coldly. Now if you choose to opt out, you can too. No, Mr. Zephyr, I still want to try it. I feel like if I don't show it, I'm afraid I'll forget. Ain said stubbornly. Seeing this scene, Zephyr snorted coldly and said impatiently, then go, I don't believe that an unknown guy will really know how to instruct people. Thank you, teacher. Ain shrank her neck, took a deep breath, and then Shizan Xiao disappeared into place out of thin air. When he appeared again, he had already arrived at the open space in the center of the stone statue. Looking at the stone statues standing around, Ain couldn't help but took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and recalled everything just now. 1 blow, another decline, 3 exhaustion. To successfully display Lan's feat, you must not only have no distractions, but also firmly believe that your legs are as sharp as blades. A series of thoughts flashed in Ain's mind. The slender legs were suddenly tense, and the toes touched the ground slightly. The next moment, Huo Ran opened his eyes. The toes suddenly exerted force, and in the astonished eyes of everyone, he put his hands on the ground and suddenly stood upside down. At this moment, the slender jade feet were as tight as a sharp blade. Immediately, the strong wind protruded, and the awe-inspiring sound of breaking through the air resounded through the sky. As if this foot, even the air is bursting. Lanjiao, round off. Boom. The circular slashing air wave rolled back with a tear-like attitude. Everyone just felt that Gangfeng was together and waited to react. The 4 stone statues near Ain were cut off in unison. The 3 stone statues a little further away were also seen to be cut off by the waist. Looking at this scene, not to mention Zephyr, Sengoku and others, even Yin was stunned. I just entered the state of mind and spirit, and a series of notes about Lan's feet flowed through my mind, and the next moment, this move came naturally. Flying fingers. Binz's violent shouts also sounded abruptly. Instantly grabbed everyone's attention. I saw his right index finger suddenly bend, and under the catapult, the flame of the orangutan Yuhi shot out like a bullet. Bang bang bang. The low crashing sound echoed one after another. The statue, which was about 2 meters high, was instantly swallowed by the firelight. The next moment, in front of everyone's eyes, there was a roar, hitting the floor hard. Another scene of interception and truncation was staged. The huge square was dead silent, and even the recruits who were still training in the distance were stunned. If we talk about shaving and moon steps, they are the foundation of the 6 styles. Then Lanjiao, pointing the spear as a higher level of attack. Not to mention the difficulty of drawing on iron blocks and paper. On weekdays, we exercise together, and there is also the same period of training in the academy. No one knows better than them how powerful Ain and Binz are. Morning, there was no master, S6 style skill, but now it has been displayed all at once. or a further extension of the skills. It doesn't seem to be able to go up in power, but this is the first time that it can reach this height. If you don't see it with your own eyes, no one wants to believe it. Do not. It should be said that even if Zephyr saw it with his own eyes, he was not very willing to believe that all this was true. Sengoku, hurry up and show me the handout. Zephyr snatched the manuscript away. After quickly opening it, the contents of the target, as well as the detailed explanation, made his pupils shrink suddenly. It was almost impossible to move my eyes. If the moment before, Zephyr still had doubts in his heart. So now, all the chaotic thoughts dissipated like a cloud of smoke. All these things in front of him made him feel hungry and greedy to study. No possibility. In this world, there is no one who has studied the 6 forms so thoroughly. Who is this person? Zephyr grabbed Sengoku's shoulder. Looking at the calm Zephyr just a moment ago, he was stunned, and Sengoku's expression changed drastically. Before he could react, the crane took the lead. The hands probed, as if sliding, directly skipping Zephyr's body. Washing fruits can not only wash people and things, but also wash away all negative emotions of people. Looking at Zephyr, who suddenly became shiny and comfortable, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief and snatched the precious manuscript back first. Originally, at their level, reading this annotated manuscript also gave me a lot of inspiration. I thought it was overrated. I never thought that it would have such a big effect on recruits. This is seriously underrated. Once it is really implemented, for the Navy, the speed of injecting fresh blood may be faster. However, there is also a very important point: this manuscript must not be leaked. Otherwise, it will fall into the hands of pirates, no matter whether they can learn systematically like the Navy, but it will also be a nightmare. Chapter 579 The Future Chief Instructor of the Navy. Wu tilde. Zifakang sighed and said, let's get rid of the fruit's ability. I have calmed down. As in the original, even Doflamingo is afraid of existence. Crane looks old, but Superman is a pervert who washes fruits, but many people are scared. If it is said, Garp is the one who runs after Roger, the Pirate King. Then, Suru was the one who ran after Shichibukai Doflamingo all over the sea. This alone is enough to show her strength, and I am afraid that she may be at the level of a general. Well, don't be ashamed in front of the students. If you have something to say later, this matter needs to be kept secret. He replied. With the foam in his right hand, he washed away the fruit ability of Zephyr. Got it. Zephyr hesitated for a moment, then sighed. It seems that I'm really old. I didn't expect that there are so many extended ways to perform these 6 styles. That man named Laxus, have you brought him back to the Navy headquarters? I want to see him. Seeing Zephyr's lost and eager face, Sengoku couldn't help but be silent. He knew very well that Zephyr had a set of training Navy recruits. However, this is also an old-fashioned approach. Just like the headquarters of the Navy, constant new blood is needed to support the entire naval operation. The old-fashioned way of training in boot camp also needs to be updated. Seemingly perfect cannot be changed. Think that the best way is not high, that is because there is no better. Or, because of fixed thinking, stagnant and unwilling to change. It can be said that the 6-style handout now obtained from Laxus is a set of training methods for the old Zephyr, and the old and the new are confronted. The long-standing confidence in Zephyr has also been shaken. That boy, the first time we met was on the ship of the 9 snake pirates. It seems that he has a good relationship with Hancock. Sengoku took the manuscript and said in a deep voice. Hancock. Zephyr couldn't help but startled and said, You mean, Master, the person who gave the 6-style lecture notes, is a pirate. As the creator and developer of the 6 styles, it is a shame that he has no deeper understanding than a pirate. No, he's not a pirate, Crane explained. He doesn't have a reward yet, and he has Bastius as a student. These 6-style lecture notes are passed on to Bastius and returned to us. Bastius. Zephyr raised his brows. This boy seems to be a lieutenant now. I didn't expect him to have such an opportunity. Unfortunately, I am preparing for the graduation practical examination. Otherwise, I really want to go and see who is the person who can comprehend the 6 styles to this point. Quote. If you can, I hope you Sengoku, you can invite him to the naval headquarters. After all, one day, I will still be old, and I want someone to replace me. Sengoku and Suru were taken aback. It never occurred to me that Zephyr, who had always refused to recognize his old age and insisted on teaching in the naval boot camp, would suddenly think about such a thing. However, as Zephyr said, everything they do now is just paving the way for future generations. If you can't walk, you still need someone to inherit. This means that as long as Laxus agrees, it will be the future chief instructor of the Navy. Since you have such an idea, I will try my best to ask Bastiu to invite him. Karp personally invited him that day, and then we met in the East China Sea. Sengoku said. He took out the phone bug with his backhand. Grumpy. The bell of the phone bug rang suddenly, causing Sengoku, who was planning to contact him, to stop for a while. I was a little puzzled, but I picked it up anyway. I'm Sengoku, Bastius has something urgent. Use this phone bug to contact me. This is the emergency phone bug that every vice admiral can only be eligible to deploy. It can only be used unless it is really before a major event. Not long ago, Bastiu even transmitted this manuscript through the hand of the Crane. Too intriguing to contact Sengoku suddenly and directly across permissions. Marshal Sengoku, I am Lieutenant General Bastiu of the G5 base. I have something important to report to you this time. The great skeleton demon with a reward of 1 billion appeared in Alabasta. My teacher, Mr. Laxus, shot and killed the Shichibuhai sand crocodile rock doll, who was trying to conspiracy the country, and the body was robbed by the great skeleton demon. The confrontation. I am now in the process of handing over the source of the information to the Princess of Alabasta. I hope that Marshal Sengoku will immediately dispatch personnel to investigate. Bastius' hurried voice came out from inside the phone bug. Whether it was Sengoku or Zephyr, even Crane's expression changed drastically. A moment ago, they were still talking about why Laxus was unknown at sea. Why would he know the 6 naval styles? Now Bastius, suddenly tell them. Laxus know the profound meaning of the 6 forms, but he also killed K. Rokdar, the 7-sea sand crocodile who wanted to seek his country. He also had a brief fight with the skeleton demon who appeared in the middle. All of this undoubtedly made them feel unbelievable. Sengoku, who is a naval intelligence general, quickly calmed down after his expression changed and said, Bastiu, what you need to do now is to hand over information with Alabasta well. You don't need to worry about other things. I will send it as soon as possible. People passed by. By the way, if you see Laxus, try to invite him to the Navy as a guest. To be a guest in the Navy. Bastiu was taken aback and said anxiously, Marshal Sengoku, have you read your teacher's manuscript? Is this way of teaching much better than the rigid teacher Zephyr? The sudden remark made Sengoku and Crane's eyelids twitch. Seeing Zephyr's gloomy face, the two of them could only let Bastius ask for more blessings. Bastiu, it seems that after graduation, you are also itchy, but the teacher misses you very much. I will find you in person when I have time. Ah, teacher, I just made a slip of the tongue. Teacher, this phone signal is not good. As the busy tone came out, the repressed atmosphere in the field not only did not dissipate, but instead became more solemn. Not long ago, in order to deal with the world destroyer Wald, they issued a call for Shichibukai. Originally intended to second the power of K. Rothel. It never occurred to him that as soon as he refused, he was beheaded by Laxus. If you hadn't heard it with your own ears, I'm afraid no one would believe it. Sengoku, what should I do about this? The great skeleton demon suddenly appeared in Alabasta. This is intriguing, Crane asked first. In the first half of the Great Waterway, the strongest man stationed is also a major general, and some lieutenant generals have also been assigned to encircle Walder. If you really want to find a candidate, I am afraid that only Garp, who stays in the East China Sea, can be competent. Carp. Sengoku felt his head swell all of a sudden. Originally, many candidates flashed in his mind. It never occurred to me that there was only this unreliable candidate left. Chapter 580 the Big Three at one time. East China Sea Rog Town. In the Naval Division Square, noisy noises rang out one after another. The silhouettes of one after another Navy soldiers shouted on the ground. On the banquet table, those exquisite delicacies have long been wiped out. Seeing this scene of the local garrison, their faces turned ashen. Not long ago, they vacated the port to receive Vice Admiral Garp, a naval hero who came to the Navy headquarters. I originally planned to take advantage of this shift time to come secretly and take a look at the legendary naval hero. I didn't see it at all, it was like a scene of corpses everywhere. I thought that there was an enemy attack from pirates, which led to the destruction of all the naval soldiers under Lieutenant General Garp. I didn't expect to approach at all, only to find out that these people turned out to be drinking high at a banquet. Bolt, you're convinced this time, I just said, the grandson I trained is much more powerful than that old man Zepha. However, I didn't expect that the guys recommended by Laxus are good seedlings, and I can meet two good little guys in the middle. This time I went back and it was a big harvest. Even Sengoku has nothing to say. Garp, blowing his nose and holding the empty bottle in his hand, shouted. However, Sanji's cooking skills are really good. If the belly is not, it really has no capacity. I believe that I can eat another shark. Drunk and swearing words rang out one after another in the huge square. Looking around the huge square, only one person was not drunk. That person is Bolt, who has followed Carp for decades and is his strongest deputy. A seemingly obscure person, but has the ability to follow the hero of the Navy and clean up the mess for his madness. That unsmiling and serious look, but even Carp could only feel helpless. Mr. Carp, phone bug. Seeing Garp, who was already snoring and talking in his sleep, who fell to the ground drunk, Bolt tugged at Garp's ear and exclaimed anxiously. Boom. Carp suddenly threw a punch and hit Bolt directly. Seeing this violent offensive, Bolt had already seen it, and hurriedly raised his hand to block. Boom. Recalling the dull collision sound, Bolt took 2 or 3 steps back. Seeing Garp, who was in a state of drunkenness, he stood up staggeringly. Stinky boy, Grandpa's name, can you call it directly? When you arrive at the Navy headquarters, you have to give me a hard toss, otherwise it will be the title of Lao Tzu's God of Destruction. Carp scolded the phone bug. Not busy picking up the wine bottle beside him, he took 2 sips into his mouth. Seeing that, as an adjutant, but called his grandson, Bolt's unsmiling face couldn't help twitching. However, at the thought of Mr. Carp's grandson, he could be taken to the Navy headquarters. Perhaps, this can fill a regret of the past. Hey, it's that guy who stopped me from drinking. If there's no reason, I'm chasing him with a big hammer. As soon as the phone worm was connected, the loud voice opened and roared. That posture was almost completely frightened, and the phone bug shrank. Cap. Zepha's surprised voice came from another part of the phone bug. As an old buddy, he was a little out of tune with Carp. But in his memory, this guy is not only eating meat, being able to sleep anytime, anywhere, and stealing Sengoku's senbei. Rarely get drunk. He remembered that the last time he was drunk was the celebration feast after the Battle of the Valley of the Gods. Who is it? Why don't you talk? I will hang up if you don't talk about it again. Carp roared impatiently again, holding the phone bug. Ha ha ha, Carp, I'm getting old and my temper has grown. If you say anything about chasing me and beating me up, I'm not afraid. Zephyr was startled at first, and then said disapprovingly, don't forget, I was a general at the time. You are still a lieutenant general. Quote. Lieutenant general. Carp was stunned for a moment and said, who are you? You dare to talk to me like this? I want to be a general, and Sengoku can't stop it. By the way, I forgot. At that time, I gave it up to Zephyr. Otherwise, the old boy would still be behind my ass and follow me around. No, it should be Sengoku too. If I hadn't given way, Lao Su would still be the marshal, and that dead old man would not be able to stop me. Don't stop me, I can still drink 10 jars of wine. After saying this, Garp directly hung up the phone bug. The three of Zephyr, who were standing on the high platform of the Navy boot camp, were extremely pale. Together with the smile that just emerged, it suddenly stiffened. There was no way to let go of the phone bug that was clenched tightly in his hand. Especially, in front of these confidant students, it is not easy to go down the stairs. Hee, as you all know, Garp has always liked to make jokes. This time he was drinking too much, and even his speech was a little off. Next time, he shouldn't ask any questions. He Chang put on a smile and took it. Called the phone bug, dialed again, and said in a soft tone. Cap, I'm Crane. Are you calling me secretly again? Don't do this, in case Sengoku finds out, he'll be jealous. I'm drinking, my daughter, don't get in my way, Sanji, I'm hungry, I can eat a shark. A hysterical growl came from inside the phone bug. At this moment, Crane regretted a little and called Carp. Finally understood, Sengoku's reluctance just now. Five Fingers suddenly clenched the phone bug in his hand, and was about to say something cruel. The busy tone of the beeping phone worm suddenly came. Boom. Crane suddenly slammed the phone bug to the ground. Damn Carp, what nonsense are you talking about? Zephyr, you prepare a boat for me, and I'm going to kill the Kapura bastard now. When did the old lady have a crush on him? The hysterical roar echoed on the high platform, causing all the students to shrink their necks. As a naval hero, he possesses unparalleled strength. However, the thought of offending the three major naval giants at one time. If after sobering up, Garp, a naval hero, would dare to appear in the naval headquarters. Crane, calm down, why don't you wash yourself away and wash away the negative emotions? Sengoku couldn't help comforting. If a person is hurt, it may be embarrassing. But the three of them were also scolded by Garp. This also gave him and Zeph's heart a little more balance. At least let them know that Garp, the goddess of the Navy who couldn't catch up with the fair competition that day, didn't get it either. That was a childhood dream. Okay, this guy has rarely been drunk since the Valley of the Gods, and now he suddenly drinks like this. Maybe something good happened. This time, let's contact Bolt. It's hard for this guy, willing to follow the card behind Pooh, help him clean up the mess. Sengoku said after taking a deep breath. However, afterward, if that guy Cap comes back to the Navy headquarters, we must chase after him to hammer.